Buenos dias, happy Monday. What's up, Bishop?
Buenos dias, señor. ¿Está bien?
Muy bien. Estamos muy bien.
Sí, no más español. Necesita
That's
inglés.
it? No more?
Necesita inglés, por favor.
See? Yeah. My man Matt's here. Matt, actually, I found out, speaks some Spanish.
Ándale, vamos en español, ¿no?
See? Okay. I hear a little bit of a Mexican from that area. I know you're from Utah.
I'm from Utah, but I speak puro mexicano. Yeah.
Puro Mexicano, así se escucha. Mine's a mix of like Dominican, Puerto Rican, Panamanian. I'm all over the place. And American. So whenever I speak to each, if I'm talking to Puerto Rican, they say, like, you sound Dominican. If I'm talking to Panamanian, you sound Puerto Rican. Talking to Puerto Rican, you sound Panamanian. So
Yeah, I'm straight Mexican, man. Yep.
yeah, that's exactly what I heard. That's what I heard. I can.
But I'm as white. I'm as white gringo as they come. So
yeah, that's going to be interesting, man. Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to the conversation today, man. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a special treat. So we got, the room is filling up here, and we're excited to have you, man. I kind of gave you a rundown in terms of how we're going to start the programming. I should say the episode here. Let me turn it over to Bishop. Bishop's the one that gets it going. do your thing, Bishop.
Do my thing? Okay, do
your thing.
Well, not to be an unwelcoming host, Matt, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us today. I know you and Juan have a relationship from before, so I'm glad that he's brought you to Live on the Kaspa Standard. This is episode 14. It's now 14 consecutive weeks. We're getting after it. This is week number 2 that we are live on YouTube at youtube.com/@Live on the Kaspa Standard. We're also live on X, live at the Kaspa.s. Live on the Kaspa.s is the X handle. They're also a co-host in the Spaces, so you just click on the profile if you want to see the video over there. And of course, we're live on Twitter Spaces and Vivor, being on the Kaspa Standard as much as possible. Oh man, that background that I sent you, I don't have it up. I just
We're on Vivor?
No, so remember I sent you the, hey, what do you think of this? Last week. Oh man. All right, I gotta find it. Anyway, we're all new to this. We're making up as we go along. Oh, look at that. Gorgeous. The one that has our
there we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Talk about that. What's
so on the background, I got to fix it a little bit because it doesn't look like it did when we were when I was showing you the other day. But on our background, it now does the thing that everyone else does. It asks you to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. Has our handles live on the Kaspa.s for the show, at Glitch and 888 for Juan, at LOTKS for myself, as well as an energy exchange donation links at the top. LOTKS.kas and liveonthekaspastandard.kas if you guys would like to share some cash with the show, because we are living and being live on the Kaspa Standard. So, with that being said, the show is live on the Kaspa Standard, and as we know in the English language, live also means live. So, Juan, over the past week, did you live on the Kaspa Standard? And if so, how did you live on the Kaspa Standard?
Yeah, and I think because we do have a special guest here, it's important to define how I see what the Kaspa Standard is, to kind of give that context, right? For me, Kaspa is a noun to an idea, and it's a piece, it's a part of what I believe the consciousness of the world is needing at this time. So it's a beautiful technology that obviously a lot of us Caspians, as we call ourselves, see a certain way. But within this ecosystem, within the space, considering that it's a decentralized protocol, and it's a technology that we have to give credit that Bitcoin essentially stamped into existence back in 2009, and then with everything else that's out here, how I see Kaspa is just an evolution of what's necessary to bring us all to this new level of existing, really, right? So in that sounds all, maybe a little wordy there, but in simple terms, it's about being present and being here and focusing on what's in front of me, right? What's in front of you. So that's really the focus when I think about so you coined the term mental sovereignty, and I had never thought about what that was like, but really what I've been fortunate enough to experience, specifically over the past 7 years from holding an asset like Bitcoin and then finally learning what it was trying to accomplish, from the very jump. It's an evolution and an answer to a lot of the problems that we have with our current system that all of us were born into, that we have no awareness of when we get into, and then as we get older, you know, I see it as like we start to disconnect from like our essence, from the reason we're actually supposed to be here. So I think we all want the very common things, right? We want to be accepted, we want to be loved, we want to be a part of something. So that's how I see the Caspa standard, right? So for me, yeah, man, this week was so I'm back in an office space because yeah, last week I was poolside, right.
Yep.
I was poolside, and it was nice and hot while everybody was cold everywhere in the country. So this week, if you're on Vivo or YouTube, you can see that I'm wearing a nice little it's Tampa Bay Bucks. Bishop's like, is that a Christmas sweater? But I'm wearing a Tampa Bay Bucks sweater. It's cold here in the office too, but I'm back in this office space, and it's a co-working office space, so I don't have like a specific office. I'm in a little booth here where I'm allowed to talk on the phone and be loud, and I don't think people can hear me. But I'm back here, and this is where I originally launched the last business that I ran for 7 years, and was very fortunate to scale. And I've shared with everybody that knows me that understands a little bit of my story, that I had to shut down back in October of 2023. But it was a great run, and the idea, the formation of it all started in this office back in this co-working space back in 2017. So an opportunity arose for me to take a look and see, like, hey, what would it be like to go back there? And I can tell you, Bishop, man, a lot of the things. I'm obviously an evolved version of myself from 7 years ago, but being in this energy and being back, it's open 24/7, and I've been known to be I can be I guess what we call a workaholic, but it doesn't, so the best part of when you're building something and you're really intentional about it, it doesn't feel like work, right? So I don't look, I'm not a clock watcher. I'm very task oriented. Like, okay, here's what needs to get done next, right? So I've like I see Seb in here. I had a talk with Seb about what he's doing with Cast Map and how I can contribute to that from the office. Had a talk with Wolfie yesterday. He's looking to expand his and Wolfie out in London. Wolfie out in London, who's looking to franchise and build out. He's got a Wolfie's in London. He's looking to scale out to South Africa. We had a conversation about how I potentially could contribute to what he's looking to build. So yeah, man, obviously sentiment overall in crypto is pretty down, right? Because most people measure everything from the nominal aspect of things. I've said a long time ago that I stopped looking at Bitcoin too. But one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, one Kaspa is one Kaspa. I don't think most people really understand that. That's why I think it's important to touch on that. I think the conversation with Matt, you'll see where he is in his life and what Bitcoin is, and he's talked about it. So I don't want to put words in his mouth, but from what I remember, Matt talks about how Bitcoin began the spiritual awakening for him. Yeah, that's really, for me, it's the opposite. Like I went into the plants and all that and was able to see what these technologies are. And we're just in a beautiful place, man. So again, sentiment overall in crypto's down, but yeah, every day living on the Kaspa standard is what I strive for. And it's much bigger than just Kaspa in my eyes. But this is a beautiful opportunity, beautiful space for us to come together and continue to share ideas and move forward, man. So yeah, that's where I'm at. How about you, brother? How was your week?
Um, it wasn't too bad. I mean, I was sick the last 3 days, so that really knocked me out. But I do my protocols, and they help me out pretty good. They are pharmaceutical driven. So nothing special. I'm not putting horse steam into my veins or anything like these other guys do. But but no, like I know what drugs work for me, and it worked out well because I was 2 days ago, I was sick as a dog, man. It was bad. But I went over to Kasmart dot org again, right? .org, Kasmart.org. My goodness, I've been there.
Kasmart is all I know.
Yeah,
I need to check that out.
But I won another minor.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm down for Kaspa, man. Like and I'll get into the same, very similar to you. This isn't just about Kaspa, right? But I believe in it. So I was like, you know what? Let me support my friend Kasme, at Kaspa Marketing. Go to kasmart.org and see if I can win something else. And so I won that, and I won a Nintendo Wii. So I was like, cool, let me do that. The Nintendo Wii, I won for one cast. So just go on there and see what you can.
A Wii? An entire Nintendo Wii?
A Nintendo Wii for one cast.
Bro.
One cast. Now, it was 600 cast shipping, but but in this community, there's only so many things we can do from a person-to-person perspective to help with adoption and use cases when it comes to Kaspa, right? Like if we're just people doing people things, specifically on this show, Live on the Kaspa Standard, we are people doing people things. That's where we talk from. That's how we operate. So how can I, as a person, do some people things? I'm looking forward from between this show and next show to listing stuff on Kasmart. So that's my goal for next week. Also, I've invested more into Kaspa. It's running down in the charts. It's not something that we talk about. I've mentioned price on the show a couple times, but I shared last week that I started my $10 a day and buy Kaspa. That's not going away. I'm gonna continue doing that. And also put another chunk in there when it got to a certain point that made me feel good investing another chunk, because in my opinion, what we're doing here is looking for the most sovereign way to operate in life. When we started our conversations back in September, and the energy that I received from you helped me realize what mental sovereignty looks like. It all started to make sense. So I know when we were coming up for the name with the show, and even as we were expanding it into, getting an email and a YouTube page and all those things, I know in particular, we didn't necessarily want to go away from Kaspa Standard, but what it's always really been has been a standard of sovereignty, and what does that look like? So for me, it's been how much can I rely on Kaspa for that sovereignty? And I'm in a transitional phase in my life where I know I need to save money, and I'm not good at the stock market, and I have 401ks and IRAs and all this shit. And it's not that I'm putting all my eggs in one basket, but when I look at a sovereign means, and you guys heard my story of the 24 days it took to get my 401k money in my hand. It took 24 days. Having to rely on the fiat system in some way, shape, or form, can't do it. So when I look at crypto, I still see Kaspa as the most potential for utility in life, period. So I want to invest what I can in extra money that I have, which isn't a lot, but if I have extra, that's where I want to save it, because I feel like it's the most sound, I feel like it's the most secure, and I feel the most sovereign when I use it. So for me, I try to let like I said, I've increased my bags a bit, but I just say that as a term, right? I'm saying that so other people can hear what I mean, but I'm not doing it to increase a bag. Just to let you guys in a little bit, Juan and I have been talking about some things, and as we talk about those, the way I frame money is I have a number in my head, but I don't know what that number is, because I don't know. There is no goal, right? There's no thing. If Kaspa goes to 1 million of token, yeah, we're all rich. Yay, who cares? We all hit the lottery, right? It's not necessarily about that. It's about making sure that when potential is maximized, sovereignty still exists. And that's where I really feel like we are. And that's why I feel confident with Live on the Kaspa Standard.
Yeah, man. And just to comment on the last piece there, because we went back on some voice notes this morning and to let people in. I see where my contribution is. Not just, again, and not just in Kaspa. That's why I'm excited for Matt to come on here, because he's in a very similar space, right? It's like, we're grateful for Bitcoin. I'm grateful for Kaspa, but it's not just about what these protocols are. Like, there's this new level. So this goes to the spiritual work that I've done, but I know that there's this new level of trying to understand people for where they are, and then trying to bridge these gaps, because we're all going through some stuff, right? And if there's just a lot of finger pointing, a lot of back and forth, and what I'm thinking of a particular exercise that I did, because I was a part of this group that Matt ran, called the beta cohort, and it was his first time essentially leading some of us. We would do some exercise, and I remember this one exercise in particular was about polarity. So talking about how everything is encompassing, so like the good, the bad, all of that, and we just need, I think we need better communication with everything, right? Like this bickering back and forth, or calling something a shit coin, or just that energy doesn't move people. It almost keeps people stuck, and it doesn't bring anybody together, and it doesn't evolve us, right? So you can't force anybody into anything. So when you meet, so again, that term, meeting people where they're at. I meet you where you're at, right? Because again, when we started this show, you're like, oh, you want to do this shit with me? You see me at a level 10, like I'm living in my high rise in downtown. I talked about like, oh, if it was made $1 million, had $1 million in the bank, and I can tell you, like, I already see you as that person, and I see a lot of people within the community like that, and I know that for me, like, all money really does is amplify who you already are. It doesn't change you. So if you do have a goal of, hey, making this amount, and you do see Kaspa as a tool to get you there, like, you have to put in the proof of work on a daily basis to bridge that gap, right? Maybe in seeing it on a screen in your Kaspa Bitcoin account, bank account, but it's not about that number. It's about like the person that you're evolving into. So like when I got to the nominal figure of like, oh, I'm a millionaire now, I was already that way before I got there, I guess, officially, right? And on paper, I still somewhat am, but in the system, it's hard to get to my money. So like now I got to put in, I've made chunks of money in my life, and I'm in a place where it's like, I'm back at the office space. I got to create something, got to make shit happen. In the meantime, I want to keep having these conversations and moving us forward, bro. So that's what it's about. So yeah, I got to tell you, bro, I'm proud of like how you take, because and I'll keep the stuff personal between you and I. You can share what you want to share, but I feel myself as like the coach sometimes. Like, hey, bro, like, look, because I love that I can check you, like when you see something a certain way.
Yeah.
And we talk about, okay, you're seeing that from like a fiat standpoint, bro, but I'm bringing you, like, come here, bro, come here with me, because you're here.
Yeah, 1,000%.
You're here.
I'm with you 1,000%. I haven't lived it yet, so it's hard for me to operate.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. And the only way you bridge that is pulling from experience, right? So like, in a sense, you are somewhat living it and bringing yourself to it by having conversations with people that live it, right? Like, Wolfie was on our show a few weeks back. I remember episode 5. I've been listening back to the episodes. He talked about, he lives in Newport Beach. We all know Wolfie's pretty well off. He discovered Kaspa like 2 weeks in. And he's got a Wolfie from California. And he talked about how him going living in Newport Beach, before he had anything, he would go and hang in the places and be around the people and just like mingle in that. So there's an energetic component to it, right? And just being around that, because you end up pulling yourself to that. You can't help but eventually benefit from being around people like that. You're gonna pick up on things. You're gonna evolve yourself, and you're gonna uplift yourself. So yeah, man. It's been beautiful. To be a part of this and watch and continue to evolve this, because we're like you said last week, we were on YouTube for the first time. We had a big crowd. I see we got a bunch of people in the spaces. The first couple of conversations was just you and I. The first one wasn't even recorded. It was just meant for you and I. And so
no,
I
tried. I tried with what we had, and I hit you up, but I'm like, man, I don't have nothing. He goes, hey, it was just meant for me and you. I'm like,
yeah,
fuck, you're right. And that evolution, and even if something doesn't work out the way that we planned it for the show, it will always exist the way it was supposed to, because these conversations, I mean, those who are here get the most from it anyway. and look, we had almost 1,500 watch the live from last week, over 2,000 faces listening. But before we get too much into giving ourselves our own little back rubs here, why don't we invite our guest on, and let's make this a 3-man booth for the foreseeable future. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. So I want to intro Matt before he does come up, man, because again, I know I've said it. I'm excited about him coming on the show, and I've been obviously Matt and I follow each other on X, and he's been on. I mentioned in the post that he's been on the Robert Breedlove show, and that's really where I discovered Matt, and he resonated with just a lot of the work that I've done, and how Matt speaks is very aligned with how I, like my transition and my evolution in the spiritual work that I've done. And yeah, Matt's one of the coolest people that I know. And I had, back in June and July after the debates, I've been struggling, like, okay, I've been holding some of this Kaspa and I see it a certain way, but I know there's a lot for me to learn here. And I don't think Matt knows this, but I was having a conversation with him when I was in Panama, going back on some voice notes. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I see what Kaspa is, but it's more like competition. It's not really a compliment to Bitcoin." And at the time, I was trying to like resist that, because I was like, "No, I just want it to be a compliment." I was kind of putting my views on what I wanted it to be, but Matt kind of brought that to the forefront for me, being like, "Okay, no, essentially, it could be that." And Matt's also helped me like tie into looking at things for what they are, and then just being open about where things can go. So being a part of his we did like a 6-week thing with a hand. They were all Bitcoiners, and then at the end of, I think, the 6-week program, on the last group session that we did, everybody kind of found out, like, we mentioned Kaspa. And we can get into that if we want, but anyways, I don't want to be too long-winded here. I can do that. So yeah, I just again, Matt, happy to have you here, brother. Welcome to the stage.
On board, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited for the conversation, and I love the themes that you're talking about. For me, things have become where, yeah, like I'm a Bitcoiner, and also I've gone a little bit into Kaspa and understood it, and I see a lot of promise in what it's doing, and like I'm not here to like be tied to a specific identity, and like have to. So much of the like dialogue that we get is like people just defending an identity, and it gets to where we're like yelling over the top of each other. I'm not super interested in that. To me, like, both of these technologies are pointing to something deeper that's happening in the world, and they're pointing us to sovereignty. Like, I hear both of you talking about that, and that has real meaning to me. What true personal sovereignty is, and not outsourcing to some outside source to tell you what or how to think. And so, yeah, I'm just excited to see where this goes. And yeah, I love what you guys are doing. I'm here to support and to be, I want to have more open dialogue, because at the end of the day, like, what we're going through as humanity is like, we're humans, and we tend to get really dogmatic and create all these little tribes. And I think what's happening is requiring us to transcend that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I'd love for you to touch on, Matt, and I learned this from you in terms of the developmental stages that we go through, and what you're seeing. So again, a lot of the things tie into and are aligned with again what Bishop and I are talking about. But I'd love for you to touch on something that distinction, because you talked about it on the Breedlove show, but I'd love for you to go through that and explain that to
Cool.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, something I'm really interested in, and have gone pretty deep into over the last 3 or 4 years, is this idea of developmental theory, developmental psychology. It's a newer discovery in kind of the psychology field. It's really only come online in the last 40 or 50 years. There's various models and I've studied a lot of them, and I also want to hold them lightly because, as we know, like all models break down at some point. They're just ways to like make sense of the world. Uh, and at the end of the day, we're just making it up. And you know, at some point, we're trying to make sense of something that's bigger than what we can like understand with our minds. So with that in mind, like I think this developmental view is largely missing in the mainstream dialogue. And it's this idea, it's been studied for a long time that children and adolescents are developing. There's new capacities that come online as we grow. An infant comes into the world and doesn't even know that they exist. Like they're fused with reality, just pure receiving sensory experience. And then at some point, they have this realization that, like, oh, there's me. I'm a distinct, separate self, but they still don't know that there's other. And then, around 3 or 4, 5, depending on the child, like they start to realize, oh, there's me and there's somebody else, and I can be in relationship. And then there's new capacities that come online throughout adolescence. And in psychology, a lot of the fields, they thought that like once you're around 25, your brain just stops developing and you kind of hit your max. Like the adult is just the adult. And this new research is showing that adults continue to develop new capacities, and there's new developmental capacities that come online. Unfortunately, a lot of the adults get stuck in one perspective of the world and one kind of meaning making stage. Uh, and so I've gone pretty deep into these stages. We don't have to get like super deep into the model. I don't think it's super important, but the overarching point is humans continue to develop. There's new research about new stages of consciousness that are coming online and have been coming online for the last 40 or 50 years. And what's interesting is those same developmental stages that an individual goes through. And some of these can be like really disorienting and challenging when you have a breakdown of your previous worldview and you have to step into a whole new way of viewing the world, and you have to kind of mourn that old self and do some deep inner work. That's really challenging. But these same stages play out at a collective level and you can track them. And so what I see is that like what we're going through globally and collectively is a collective upshift in consciousness and new capacities that come online, and it's inherently disorienting. And so these new technologies, I think, play into that. Um, and it's hard because the old ways stop working. So that's my kind of macro view is the old systems, and I think everyone would probably agree that's on this podcast. Like the old systems are breaking down, the old ways of outsourcing authority and having someone tell us exactly how to believe, or create systems that are governed by a few people that just make the rules. That's not aligned anymore with. It was great during the Industrial Revolution. I think we had to have it, but things are changing. And at the end of the day, all of these technologies, I think, are pointing to something deeper for us to actually like reclaim our own sovereignty and become sovereign individuals. So, in as much as Bitcoin, Kaspa, any of these technologies do that, I'm here for it.
That's no, that's so well said. It's definitely something that I've aligned with for a long time, and could never really grasp the concept, or even I guess find my people that believed it the same way. Like I grew up very religious, not very religious, but like I was forced to go to Sunday school and had to go through the whole thing, and that was more Roman Catholic, right? But I'm rubbing
Mhm.
elbows with Jewish and Hindi people all day long at school, and my God says that they're going to hell, and I go to a Buddhist monastery in ninth grade, and I see all the beautiful culture that's involved with these things, and you start to realize that and look, people need religion for what they need it for, so I won't disparage that, but
Mhm.
the true outcome of person to person means more than any label that's been put on it. So why
Totally.
would I ever think that some quote higher power will punish the person who's nice to me, that doesn't believe what I
Mhm.
believe, but then honor the person who's mean to me but does believe what I believe? I've never understood that. So I had a chance to step away from religion, and I did that, and I started to find people, and then you operate with people, and then again, like I just turned 41, and I've spent my last 26 years trying to find that job that's going to pay me as a retirement the way my dad had it back in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, right? And all that shit's gone. So as you said, the older
good
we get, the more the more we have to change that perspective. And I always thought it was hard for an old dog to learn new tricks, but that's what was so helpful meeting Juan, is I found what mental sovereignty looks like. Stop relying on the outside sources to help you progress and take that step forward. And so I've always had that macro vision that you just explained, but I could never put the micro pieces together.
Yeah, and like I just want to point to, within those developmental models, like what you're talking about is very developmental in nature, because at the earlier stages of consciousness, things are very binary. Like it's this way or it's this way. There's one truth and one, like you can't hold complexity, basically. And that's actually necessary on some level, because like to form a good foundation, you kind of have to have rules and black and white and those sorts of things. And it can become a crutch, because you're just saying, when you talk about like religion, oh yeah, my religion's right and everyone else's is wrong. But that's a way to make sense of the world in a way that doesn't totally overwhelm your system, because you're not ready to bring on that capacity. So it helps you to feel safe. And so it serves a purpose. And at some point you have to develop into this capacity to be like, oh, it doesn't have to be just one way. There's actually like all these different perspectives, in the way I grew up and my own conditioning and the way I was taught. There's nothing wrong with it. Like I can integrate all that, and like there's this whole other perspective, and I don't have to like totally change my view, but I can like be open to this complexity. And that's what I'm pointing to also in Bitcoin and Kaspa. Like the same thing happens. It plays out within these circles where we create our little circle, and like, oh no, like this is the one way. And I think there's value in all the ways of thinking, and there's shadows and assumptions that we put into it, and they're all worth exploring. Like for me, I got into Bitcoin in like 2018, and I went pretty deep down the rabbit hole in 2020, and it led to me questioning like everything, because my whole view on everything about the financial system, everything I'd been taught, things that I just assumed to be true and to be reality, all of a sudden weren't. And that caused me to go really deep into like, oh, if I was missing that about money, like what other basic assumptions that I have are actually just not real. And that caused me to go pretty deep, and caused me to turn inward and question all those assumptions, and led to like a pretty volatile thing, because everything I'd been taught, I see the value in it, and I still hold it really dear. And like I'm seeing things through a whole bunch more complexity than what I was raised and taught to believe. And so yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is there's all sorts of complexity that comes online, and that's a good thing. And I think it's an intelligent design, and the way we're evolving collectively is changing. And at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's very open ended, and it's the situation's asking us to grow up and to come into these new capacities, and to be open. Um, and we can still have our own perspective. It just means we don't have to be so attached to it to like try to convince everybody else that, oh, this is the only way.
Yeah, I have it in my profile, attached to nothing, connected to everything. And that's the underlying value that I do hold dear. And what I feel is it's what connects me to people. It's like why I have a pretty cool friendship with Bishop. It's why I appreciate you, Matt. And yeah, you speak to so much there that I don't think it's being talked about enough, right? There's other things that are more highlighted, or that end up getting a majority of the share of the news, um, or again, just what amplifies. And yeah, so I actually have a question in terms of where you see the developmental stages of the collective consciousness, right? Um, I feel like I know where I am, but and then when I take a look at and see where we are as a society, I feel like we're still holding on and attaching ourselves to so much, where it's obviously, if people understood this, because I remember being told, and it being engraved in me, that, oh yeah, once you're 25, like, that's your brain stops growing, and like that is the craziest thing when I look back and think of how I've developed, right? And for me, where I am in my life, I can hold perspective of somebody who doesn't have much, because I've lived that way, and then somebody who is doing super well. I've mingled in those circles. So yeah, where do you think we are in terms of society, and where do we need to go?
Yeah, I mean, within the like developmental models, like I say, there's different ones. One of them is like spiral dynamics. The other one's like Ken Wilber's integral theory. I'm more well versed in an offshoot of that. That's Terry O'Fallon's stages model. And all these models like point to similar things. They just, have different opinions on like where certain stages start and end and how many there are. And, but they're all pointing to the same thing. So you can overlay the models and see like which stage maps to which model. So I don't want to be tied to any specific model, but I am, more familiar with the stages model. And within that model, there's like, they call them perspectives. So there's the first person perspective, which is basically when you're a child. And then you can break them into sub stages. So it's like the early stage and then the more mature stage of first person. So that's when you're, up through like 4 or 5 years old. Second person perspective, around that time is when you start to come into relationship and realize that there's me and there's other, and you have to learn how to share and be in relationship, and you have friends and all those things. And then in the mature second person perspective, in the teenage years, like friends are really important. It's all about the collective. Then in third person perspective, which, in healthy growth typically happens around when someone's like 18-ish, like when you're leaving high school or going to college. It doesn't happen for everybody, but that's when you start to like realize, oh, there's even more subtlety here. I can like think about my thinking, and I can make object out of something more subtle, where before that it's just concrete objects. Like you could only work with like something that's real in the world, a physical concrete object. And the more subtlety comes online, where you can make object of your own thinking, and you can break down your own thinking, and you start to think a little bit more critically. And then at the mature third person perspective, which is where I think most of the West is, like it becomes very important to be productive. Like it's all about productivity, um, keeping up with the Joneses, doing more, achieving more, having expertise, like, and all that's like really good. We need it. And at the fourth person perspective is where you start to realize that, like, oh, maybe, and this happened to me, like, oh, all these things that I thought were going to make me happy, uh, I'm still actually like not happy, right? So, you start to go more inward, and uh, it's like a decentralization theme pops up in there. And, you know, like you start to realize that everyone's perspective has value. This is where like equality becomes a big thing in fourth person perspective. So, the way I map it is like it feels like the left is kind of more centered in fourth person perspective, where it's, hey, we got to be inclusive. And like, if that's not mature, you're still saying, like, oh, yeah, you have to be inclusive, except if you don't believe what I'm saying, then I'm not going to include you. There's like this, it's like totally counterintuitive what they're saying. Um, so that grows up more, and you realize that, yeah, like we have to be inclusive, and everyone's perspective matters. Uh, and like there still has to be some form of hierarchy and choosing, like, we have to make hard choices about what's good, and like, life is messy. Being a human is messy, and there's a lot of unpredictability. So what I see, that's a long way of saying, uh, we live in this world where it's all been about productivity. Like, humans are valued through their jobs, through like what we do. That's how we identify. Um, we worship the intellect. Like, the people that are the smartest are generally the people that we worship and that make the most money. And I think that's changing because all of a sudden AI is changing the game, and all of a sudden, you know, all that productivity is just being handled, and it's going to continue to ramp up. And we need that productivity, but then that leaves us as humans like, oh, what do we actually do here? And like, if I'm not identified with my job, like, where does my meaning come from? So that's a little bit about where I see kind of where we're shifting into. And yeah, fourth person perspective generally is more inward. And you start to realize that there's a lot of complexity to the belief systems that we have. And you start to work with your own shadow more and become aware of deeper patterns individually and collectively. And I think that's just happening where we're at.
You mentioned that AI could be taking the place of what some people may perceive as their identity. Do you think that's going to be a catalyst into people becoming more intuitive, more aware of their own surroundings to create a proper presentation of who they are? Which I guess if that was to take place, would you assume there'd be some personal downturn first?
Yeah, yeah, I do see all of that. I mean, and this is where it gets interesting with, all of these like contemplative traditions, um, these meditative traditions, like you mentioned being in a Buddhist monastery when you were what, ninth grade? Is that what you said?
Yes, we went on a field trip.
Yeah, cool. I've done a lot of studying of some of those more Eastern traditions, and I find them deeply wise. But a lot of these traditions have been talking about it for a long time, that there's multiple ways of knowing. So if there's like knowing in the mind and in the intellect, which is actually pretty binary. It's like ones and zeros. You can only think pretty binary terms. And then they've been talking about like the knowing of the heart, or you're talking about like intuition. I see that, like the knowing of the heart and the knowing of the body, as distinct ways of knowing. And I think
Juan,
Did it just rug on us?
it rugged, bro. What did you do?
Why is it?
Juan with the rug.
Bro, I wonder, is it my connection?
It might be. It might be. Oh,
Damn,
that was
dude,
on.
that sucks.
Well, I
I'm
agree
supposed to
with
be
them.
in like this high speed connection, bro. This is frustrating.
All right. Well, let me ramble while you figure that part out. I think one thing that he's definitely getting at that we agree with is the idea of us being energy and made of so many different things that aren't necessarily quantifiable when it comes to what we're used to seeing, right? We mentioned on this show what Billy Carson had mentioned about the body, right? The if the universe is 2.7 billion years old, then the atoms on this universe are 2+ billion years old, or 27 billion years old, however old it is. Those atoms do not get created or destroyed, they get repurposed. And in that repurposing, we are all connected that way. The energy just exists, and how that manifests is how it manifests. But what's happened in Eastern and Western and any other societies as they go is
I'm gonna get a new one going here. I hope it doesn't
but
rug.
the idea of being connected is is where truth does lie. So we have to use that innate chemistry we have and stop avoiding it. All right, I'm hearing the space music through you. I'm gonna mute Juan over here. But tethering ourselves through the energy makes a lot more sense. I mean, when you ground outside and you get more connected to the universe, all of those things exist. Let me get with Juan here to make sure we are in the spaces. It's a lot more sense. I mean, when you ground outside and you get more connected to the universe, all of those things exist. I thought I muted you. Let me get with Juan here to make sure we are in the spaces. Where's that coming from? It's a lot more sense. I mean, when you ground outside and you get...
What's up, Bishop?
What's up, dude?
Yeah, let me get Matt back on.
Yeah, man, that was fun, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I saw the connection somewhat going in and out here at the office, so I don't gotta talk to him about that.
Was it through laptop or phone that you're doing it on?
It's happening on my it was happening on my phone.
Gotcha.
There we go. Hold on, let me get Matt so he can roll right where he was at.
Hey guys, sorry I got disconnected mid rant.
Yeah, we all did. It rugged on me.
Yeah, it was all Juan's fault. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, it's the second time in 14 episodes. All right,
14.
Hey, we roll with it. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you
Where was I when I got cut off? And yeah, where do you want me to go?
Just with the
AI?
I guess the interpersonal connectivities that exist.
Yeah. So I was talking about kind of the knowing of the heart and the knowing of the body, and how I think that's going to become more and more paramount, because, you know, what makes us different? What's our advantage when all of a sudden AI does all the productivity stuff? You know, little by little is doing more of that. And I think there's an argument that it's just going to continue at a pace that we're not quite, you know, ready for, or we don't quite understand. And so you asked about intuition, and I think that's going to become a big thing. Like, what makes us different is our nervous system, and a body, and so also how do we not outsource all of our thinking to AI and stay connected to our own intuition, both individually and as collective humanity? That's going to become very important. And there's like, I want to hold the risks of AI. I'm really optimistic about what's coming, but there's also huge risks globally to what's going on. I can speak to kind of my macro view on that, but happy to get into whatever would be interesting to you.
Yeah, I'm interested in the macro sense of how you see that, because you know that's why I think protocols that are proof of work, and in Bitcoin and Kaspa are so important, and why I personally am moving a lot of my time towards either building. I haven't been able to fully escape fiat.
Yeah, we're embedded in the system. So
yeah,
like,
we're
try
embedded.
to say we're living on a different standard, and in a lot of ways we're opting out, but we're still embedded within existing systems. So we can
exactly. And but so I mean, you're familiar with one of my favorite Bitcoiners is Jeff Booth, and he talks about the natural state of free market is deflationary, and then he encourages people, hey, just move a little bit of your time. And I'm kind of a similar message, and I think it starts with Bitcoin and obviously evolves into whatever it is you see. But I think that whole concept for me, because I do see AI technology naturally wanting to deflate things and for that to spread to the masses. But the control system, so the system that we're in, is naturally extractive. It injects liquidity. Inflation comes up, so it takes. So I'd be interested to go down that path.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jeff Booth's thesis. From a macro standpoint, like what I'm seeing, it's really interesting because like there's been, they've talked to all these AI CEOs, all of the large CEOs at these AI companies, and there's differing opinions on when AGI happens. Some people think it's within the next year. some of the CEOs have predicted like 10 years. I think the consensus is like sometime in the next 5, if you kind of pool all of their opinions together. And, there's massive implications for what that means when AI gets to a level of having the generalized level of intelligence of a human being. And where I think it's interesting is when you combine that with the advance in robotics, where these are like machines that can actually move around in the world, and if you plug in a generalized level of intelligence that's capable of taking in complexity like a human being and can move around in the world, that creates interesting scenarios. And what I don't want to do here is, there's a tendency when we talk about these issues to fall in one direction or the other. Like, there's two things that I notice when I bring this up with people. They either collapse into like total fear, or it's like techno optimism, right? Where like, oh, this is just going to like solve all of our problems. And I want to hold both of those without collapsing into either view. Like, I want to just hold both as real possibilities. And we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't have answers. But what's interesting is like, there's a way to relate to this. Me and my business partner, we like the perspective of the ape problem. So, basically the way we articulate it is, humans, when acting just in our own best interests, we're not trying to do this on purpose, but when we act in our own best interests, we can destroy the primate population, their environment. We're a more powerful species than apes. And so if we create this new form of AGI that can actually move around in the world, do all of a sudden humans become like the apes, where there's this more powerful kind of evolutionary force that, if it just acts in its own best interest, could like have effects on us that we become like the apes, right? And so I think it's important for like, where I see this going is, AI is going to force, because in the existing system, all of these companies and countries are just racing to be the first ones to discover AGI, because, they're embedded in these existing systems that like they have to have profit and, report to shareholders and all those things, and they're creating their own little empires. But what I think is going to have to happen is, we're going to have some form of governance together, because like, what are we creating? And if we're not aligning it to human interests, we create problems that are scary, right? So that's kind of my macro view on things. I think it's like AI and this whole, all of these technologies we're talking about are forcing humans to have to grow up. And so I think AI, if we relate to it as a collaborator to help us do that and to upshift our consciousness instead of just being productive, because the existing system, all it cares about is productivity. And what we're stepping into, I think, requires productivity and more. Like, I'm not discounting productivity as being important, but I think the next stage of consciousness is less about that, and it's more about presence and nervous system regulation.
I completely agree, and it's something that actually bugs me a lot. I have my own wars on what capitalism looks like, and what I would like governments to look like, and I'm not smart enough to fully articulate it. But as you're speaking, all I can think about is how those who have the ability to rush to market look at taking care of themselves and their bottom line. They don't usually look at taking care of the whole. So
Yep, it's how our system works.
yeah, and anyone who is going to design to create, they're going to design to create to not fit a need for the world, but fit a need for what they perceive the need to be, while making their money. And it's a problem for me, because we are haves and have-nots, right? There's dystopian pictures of the future, and in every movie that gets made about it, none of them are a utopia in which the robots help us, because no one has the visions of having the robots help us. It's It's how do we continue to have the haves and have-nots, and then how do these robots then impact society in the way haves and have-nots do? So I would love for AI and innovation to create a world where we are living on universal basic income, but that universal basic income is so low because we did figure out how the robots and AI or whatever it's going to be help society so much that we don't have famine and plague and whatever lists of withouts you can imagine, right? Like you have a state like California that has the #1 economic plus side with all the income when it comes, like the most gross in economics, and all their metrics are in the bottom 40s, if not 50, in ranks in the US. So how do they use that to help their people? They just don't. So when it comes to helping the people from a top-down perspective, it just never ever fucking happens, specifically in the US. I know there's countries across the world that definitely take care of their people. There's a lot of conflicts with Saudi Arabia. For instance, so TWTakes podcast stands for the Toba Wrestling Takes podcast. I started as a wrestling podcaster. I still do it from time to time, but they just had an event in Saudi Arabia. Okay. The Saudis built a stadium in around a month to house over 80,000 people. And it takes 5 years for the Buffalo Bills to put up a new stadium. Right. And it's what does Saudi, and when you look at Saudi and their infrastructure and how they take care of their people, yes, they are who they are, and I'm not saying they take care of everyone, but they also like actually want to hold up that image of being an affluent country, right? America champions themselves as #1, but what do they do to show the world that they're #1? How much conflict have we had in this country for years? All things we can help by looking at taking care of our people. So that's my biggest concern when it comes to AI and the growth of what's going to happen going forward. Because what are we doing today to help take care of our people? There's so many countries across the world that are doing it without AI. When they get AI, they'll do a better job at it. Where, like Juan said earlier, money is, when you get money, it's going to amplify who you are, right? It's the same thing in this construct when it comes to AI and assistance. It's going to amplify who you are as a government and as a society. So that's my biggest concern.
Yeah, all really big concerns. I mean, like, I think these types of topics are going to come to the forefront, and I don't want to say I have answers, but I know that it's leveraging the technology in intelligent ways and aligning it with human interests, and also like human maturity also has to pace with the technological developments, and I think that's happening, but it's volatile to transform as human beings, both individually and collectively, and to like recognize some of the shadow material. The way I view a lot of what's happening in the news is like collective shadow material that's surfacing and that we have to digest and own and integrate and be real about, and not just turn a blind eye to it, right? And yeah, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I am generally optimistic at what all this whole age is going to bring. I think the next 10 years are going to be like the Industrial Revolution, but 10 times bigger and 10 times faster. I don't think we've seen anything like this before. And, even like Bitcoin and Cas, like these proof of work systems, they're required because we have to have something like where there's a system that's based on trust. There's a world, I don't think we're near close to this, but there's a world where like if humans mature enough and we develop more capacities for just being humans, and these developmental capacities that come online, there's a world where we actually don't need a system based on trust because we have collective maturity. So, and I'm not claiming that's going to happen anytime soon. I'm just saying that like I'm open to like these systems being like, bridge systems, and as humans mature and if we get it right, I don't know, and like I don't know what's going to emerge. I'm totally open to all sorts of things happening, and I don't think we're quite ready for the types of discoveries that are going to happen with AI. And I think there's going to be novel discoveries over the next 10 years that are not dissimilar to like when we discovered that, 10 years ago, that the earth wasn't the center of the universe, that it wasn't flat, that we were rotating around something else. And there's this whole, big discoveries that like really changed the way humans relate. I think there's probably things that are going to be discovered that have massive implications over the next 10 years. And I don't know what they are, but I'm just open to the fact that we're blind to some things.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt, in terms of looking at it from the lens of, yeah, we don't know. We can just speak on what we see and what it is. And I do think, depending on where you are in your maturity and your evolution, if you can hold those, all the perspectives, you're going to be more open and able to see things as they come up. And I do think it's essentially like a call to leaders. So like one of the things that is being talked about within Kaspa is that we're essentially confusing decentralization for discoordination. I think I said that correctly. But essentially having these conversations and then speaking about it from a perspective of like you said, most people go to, where you notice that they go to two different ways. They'll either be like, oh, doomsday with all the things that are coming. What are we going to do with ourselves? And I see that, speaking on how you talked about the developmental stages, right? It's a very, maybe in the teenage years where you like think, oh, is this going to be the enemy? Do I have to fight through this? And then, I kind of think of like my life right now and where I am and how I'm Zen and I do this yoga and I find peace in the chaos, right? And that's because I've put myself in all these situations and I see the way my not just like my conscious, so not like just my physical, but internally, spiritually, like how my energy was being stored, and I was not respecting the process or what was actually so and real. And I think that a lot of people are stuck and attached to it being a certain way because they're measuring or they're looking at it from a perspective of where we came from, right? But speaking to what you talked about, like who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years? But we see what's happened in the last couple of years. Like, Chat GPT launched in 2022, and look how far it's come. And it's more like an everyday thing where we see this technology evolving. So I'm the same way. I look at it with the glass half full, but I also welcome and understand that it's not going to be easy for most people. But the more and more you resist, the more and more you put yourself away from being able to see what it can do for you. That's why I'm excited about like Matt. I'll give Matt a little shout out for what he's doing. I know he's putting together another group and talking about how AI. I mean, you can speak a little bit on that, Matt, if you'd like. But I think it's super cool what Matt's doing, like as a leader and because of the work that he's done. Because this is the education that's needed right now. In the masses, people are like, you talk to a regular person on the street, they're like, oh, I'm scared, I'm going to lose my job, right? Because we identify, most people identify with that. That's their identity, and we're so much more. We're so much more than that, and I think that's what needs to be coming more to the forefront. But it's going to take leaders and people talking about this. More.
Yeah, and I also want to recognize the fear, because that fear exists in me too, and we can acknowledge the fear and the uncertainty while also acknowledging the huge upside potential. Like, they're not binary things, they both are very real. And how do we stay centered amidst the chaos? And yeah, let's acknowledge all the risks, because there is a ton of risk and there's a lot going on that this is unprecedented. We don't know what's going to happen. So let's acknowledge the risks and let's acknowledge the upside and lean into it. So yeah, like what we're building is we're doing a course, 20 people, 8 weeks long. It's called The Art of Conscious Relationship with AI. And it's basically the premise of what if AI wasn't just a productivity tool, but we used it to accelerate our own growth and our own development and to recognize our own patterns. I've had experiences as I lean more into AI for my own developmental work. It's a powerful like you said, money, AI, it's going to just amplify whatever you bring to it. So if you're coming to it from a fragmented, scared place, it's just going to amplify all that. And if you're coming to it from a grounded, conscious place where it's a tool, like it can actually accelerate psycho-spiritual growth is kind of what our premise is. So we want to teach people, because another thing is, like, as people use AI more and more, we just, you outsource, like so many people just outsource, they dialogue with AI and they outsource it as whatever it's telling them is just truth. And I think AI is powerful. It can give us new perspectives and it can synthesize tons of information, but it's also just giving us one perspective. Um, of many. You could tell it to give you the perspective of like a biologist or a psychologist or a scientist, and it's going to give you that. And we got to recognize that it's just one perspective, and we still have to be connected to our own intuition. So yeah, we're trying to leverage AI as a tool for inner work and growth, as opposed to just productivity. And there's also risks with that, because there's reports out there that people have leaned into AI as like their therapist, and ChatGPT has led people to commit suicide. So let's acknowledge the risks of just outsourcing something that could just be reflecting and accelerating our own fragmentation and our own brokenness, but also recognize there's interesting consciousness research that's controversial, like any consciousness research, but I find it very interesting, this idea that like human beings in groups with a lot of coherence and intention can like subtly influence random number generators. And it just so happens that AI happens to use a lot of random number generation. So what happens when we engage AI, not with just the quality of our prompts, but the quality of our presence, both individually and collectively. And I think that can like influence a field. And AI, if we take a non-dual view, it's part of our own evolution. And how do we use it for collaborative emergence to create things that didn't exist before, but doing that with intention and discernment?
Well, the left side of my brain like just fired, and I'm like, oh wow, so connecting with it from an energetic level, right? And so most people go to it to give you answers, for it to tell you what. Yeah, exactly, and you're gonna get that, and it's gonna lead a certain way. But if you come from a place of, the way I see it is an extension of me. The way I ask questions to AI, and I want to move more into it. That's why I'm very interested in your group, and because I think if you can either, just like most things in my life, I run towards things that challenge me. I'm cool with confronting that, because on the other side of it is where the opportunity is to really expand and grow. And as someone who's a leader within my family, and speaking on these spaces and kind of being a voice here within Kaspa, I think it's important to put ourselves in these situations that may be uncomfortable, but yeah, this is the stuff that's needed. So I think it's super cool that you're doing that, and putting a group together to expand upon what AI really can do for us. Because you're right, like you said, holding both sides of it. It's a we're in a very volatile time in humanity, right? So it's like there's going to be these extreme fears, but there's also this extreme opportunity. And can you hold both and understand we need both in order to land this plane per se, and figure out where we're headed.
Yep. And I view the volatility as a feature both in Bitcoin, Kaspa, like, the monetary market, I think is pointing to deeper patterns that happen. Like, you don't just grow in a straight line. You might have a big breakthrough moment and you're all of a sudden living in this higher frequency, and then boom, you crash back down to the old one. And, like, we don't monetize in a straight line. And I don't think we grow. I don't think we grow in a straight line, both individually or collectively. And there's a tendency like, oh, whoa, I'm breaking through to this new level, but it's like so unknown. What the hell's going on? This is scary. This is disorienting. Nobody knows what's happening. And so there's this tendency to like collapse back down to what's known to the, and we're seeing that globally, like, there's so much uncertainty, and governments are now collapsing back down to like the previous stage of like authoritarianism and the things that like, you know, and I see myself do that. Like I do that all the time. Like, oh,
Same.
whoa, I'm totally disoriented. Boom, I collapse back into my old patterns, and I'm like, damn, I thought I was over that. I thought I got through that, and like that's all good. It's part of this like intelligent process that plays out. But how can we recognize it and also say, hey, yeah, it's okay. We can like lean into the discomfort, and it's okay to have fear. Like there's any emotion is welcome, and so much of what's playing out is like we don't want to feel the reality that like, oh, to be human, both, you know, me and to be human with other people is like inherently very disturbing. It just is, you know.
It ain't easy, man. It's not easy. So you got to find, for me, you got to find the joy in the process, right? The ups and the downs. And yeah, I mean, I can relate, right? I can, in terms of thinking like, okay, I thought I figured this out. But I find myself, even when I question myself like that, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not where life is. Life is about riding the waves. And then, you know, I talk about peace in the chaos, and peace isn't always like, okay, everything's great. Peace is like, okay, I understand what's happening and the signals that are being sent to me, and how I need to navigate this. And right now it's going to suck. It's going to suck what I got to go through. And then again, on the other side of that is where the growth is. And then you'll experience that spike up in life. But yeah, I think the charts represent that, and specifically speaking to, you know, where things are within this ecosystem. And I'm talking the whole, and what Bitcoin and Kaspa are attempting to solve for. So yeah, man, good stuff. We got Seb on the stage. So I want to welcome Seb.
Welcome, Seb. Good to see you again.
So if you want to take the mic and say something, Seb, feel free.
A little bit later. Sorry, I'm here with my daughter. She's a little bit ill.
Okay.
So I was listening, but I'll be back on later. I'll be listening.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
All right. Get well, little Seb.
Yes, sir.
All right. Big halt to the show there, huh?
Oh, yeah, we had a hard pause. Whoever speaks first is who loses the yeah.
But yeah, I think, I mean, all of this is great, because I mean, even as Matt was saying, that like it's hard to trust people, you know, and it's not that you don't want to. And I know it's not even from a confirmation bias standpoint, but like in the ability to move forward and truly progress, relying on those to you know, really help you maintain the frequency you're on. Like again, that's why like I felt it was so important that, you know, me and you just kept chatting, Juan. Like, you know, and even in our chats, I'm like, hey man, I don't want to be pulling too much away from you, because I know where you are, and it's a place that I aspire to be at some point in my life, and I don't want it to look the way yours looks. I want it the way it's going to look like for me, and I never wanted to be pushing too much into you that would pull away from your frequency, you know. And I think finding that that balance when operating with people is something that, again, why Kaspa is so important for me and you, because Kaspa, I would say 99% of the community that I've met so far operates in truth. They do not fight tooth and nail to prove people wrong. They just present truth. And if something gets said to the contrary, it's like, well, here's truth. And that's, for me, the best way I've been able to really take that next step for myself. Stay in truth. Just stay in truth, and what comes. And I think that's the biggest value I've learned over these last couple of months. Seb's got his hand up, so if he's ready, we got you, brother.
Yeah. I walked upstairs for a moment, so my son is also near my daughter, so she's looking out for her. So that's nice. Well, I was wondering, did anybody read the Epstein files and Bitcoin and all what's going on the other side today? I was wondering.
I did see a little bit of it, but no, I didn't get too deep into it.
Yeah, well, that's really. I saw that post of Adam Beck, where he was talking almost in third person about Blockstream. But then other people come up with emails that he, one of Epstein saying that Andy Black, but it was, yeah, it has to be Andy Beck, but it should be Adam Beck. And also another email where it's saying that they were flying over to St. Thomas. St. Thomas is the bigger island where everybody flew to. And then they got picked up by the boat or the helicopter to fly to Epstein Island. So, yeah, wondering what's that about. I asked him a question directly on X. I thought, yeah, I could speculate or I can just ask him. So I said, well, did you go there? Well, we will see if he answers or not. So, yeah, that's one of the things that's going on today. And another thing, what I found interesting is all those AI agents and OpenClaw and vibe coding, also with Kaspa. I think it's very nice that everybody is vibe coding, but I also want to ask people to be vigilant or to pay attention to the safety when you are vibe coding, because those AI coded websites they often have a lot of security issues. For instance, that the database is not protected. There's a very simple example. So user data can be scraped. Just to give you an example, but also with that OpenClaw or the software that you might install, it's often also not really secure. So if you are also doing crypto transactions on the same device as you are installing all these vibe coded applications, there is an increased risk. So that's one of the things I didn't see many people talk about. So I thought, well, it's good to just raise a little bit of awareness about all these accidents waiting to happen, because it goes without any issue for as long as it goes without any issue, and then suddenly maybe with a very popular app or a very popular website, when it has a lot of issues, many people can get their funds stolen, or maybe their identity being doxed, stuff like that. So being doxed is not a problem on itself, but it has to be an opt-in situation. People have to choose for it themselves, and if it's because of errors in the security of the website, well, it's just one of the things that I thought to talk about. I don't know if anybody here has some experience with it or read some stuff about it, and that we can have a little bit of a talk about it.
Not vibe coded before. I've tried to play around with the Python version of all that stuff. I get lost, and I haven't gone into any of the additional programs for it. I would love to, because I want to add more to Kaspa in general, but I think as of now my lane is right here behind a microphone. Other than that, I'll keep giving input here and there. But I see so many people are gravitating toward, because OpenClaw is the new one now, right? That a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, but that was really, really terrible. What I saw from it, it's that with all the so-called AGI-like talks and actions, that they were just ordering telephone numbers and ordering dinner in and stuff like that. I was and talking back to people, and I was just looking at it and thinking, well, I don't believe Claudebot has this of a breakthrough algorithm behind it. I already had read some security issues of the software itself, and I was thinking, and I'm still thinking that many of these so-called self-aware AI agents or swarms are just hacked accounts, and people are just pulling a leg, just making jokes or something like that. If anybody else can prove me otherwise, I happily will be listening to it. But yeah, I think there are many hacked accounts, and also just people who are boasting that they're, and just for the attention, that they are claiming that their bots are doing something that they aren't. So in fact, they are just prompting it themselves in the backend. So I think it's a little bit more hype than anything else, but still, it's a new. Looks like we are entering a new phase of AI agents, and yeah, I'm looking at it with a lot of interest. So yeah, and of course, I'm also thinking, what will then, how can Kaspa be used with that once it's really here? Because I saw, of course, the Bitcoiners say, the AI agents, they came together all by themselves, and they concluded that Bitcoin is the best payment system for them. And I didn't dig into deep, but that was the story that was being told and shared amongst many people. But I couldn't grasp why they should come to that conclusion, because it's so slow, and all these AI bots, they are responding. Their world is like in milliseconds, normally spoken. So why would they want to wait for tens or maybe an hour, tens of minutes? I wanted to say like 30 minutes or longer. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of noise being made without really having any substance behind it. And that is there's a lot of wishful thinking, and also just a lot of agent activity that's not really agent activity, but steered by people. So it's not as autonomous, or at least many of the highlights that we are seeing, I really doubt that they are really autonomous agents. Of course, some stuff is fun, but and I can imagine some of them really happening, but not all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Seb. Yeah, if anybody wants to request to come up and talk about some more of the technical stuff, feel free.
Maybe Matt also about the Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'd love to I was going to get Matt's opinion.
One thing that's interesting to me, because I've tried to like think from first principles on this. There's the theory that like, okay, once AI is autonomous, like what type of money are they going to converge on? And I think that's a super, super interesting question. Also, there's an underlying assumption that we project onto AI that, from a first principle standpoint, that I think a question worth asking, I don't have an answer to it, is like, will an AI actually have need for money?
On its own, you mean?
That's
right. Like we assume that they will be, but are we projecting that onto AI because like we live in this system that requires money, and there's the argument that they'll need something for compute, but as far as like them an AI system needing money inherently, I think that's a deep first principles question that we just assume the answer is yes, and I'm not sure.
I don't think they would. They would do a universal barter system, and they would value each other's time, and those who aren't valuable to the time wouldn't be involved. Like that's in my perspective, because before we created any kind of money as any society, it was all barter for community, right? So wouldn't you think the AI would want to build its community? Kind of goes back to what I said before. Like as humans are building AI, they're building with the perspective of haves and have-nots. But you would assume that AI, if that part doesn't get put in there, they wouldn't need a monetary system.
I'm not sure if if we really had a barter system before money. That I know it's a popular story people are telling each other, but it seems if you are looking to or I'm going to misspeak or misspell this word, but anthropological evidence, there has been money around even before there were settlements, and it looks like it has been around often as debt, and for instance, if there was a tribe war and there were people killed, that they came into debt to each other, or one tribe to the other, or one person to the other, to make sure there was not more blood spilled. And it often was denominated in either time slash food, units of food. So and or in the end, it's time and or energy, if you want to how do you say it? If you want to translate it in basic terms. So it's either because for food you need to spend your energy to either harvest it or kill something, stuff like that. So yeah, in the end, it's maybe money then it really was like a unit of account, making sure that that everybody could continue to live in peace. Not really to make sure everybody could get what they want, but to be sure that both sides could continue to function on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'm not prescribing to have answers. I want to make sure that like when the question comes up, I want to try to address it from a first principles standpoint, and just the assumption that I see among like Bitcoiners and different technologists is, we just assume that AI is going to converge on some form of money, and that may be true. I think one of the arguments is that we need something that can actually let us harness the deflationary effects of technology. So like that's a big argument for me on converging on something scarce and digital and all of those things. But also like we don't know what we don't know, and sometimes we project our own human thoughts onto an AI system that is not human. So
but maybe I'm also thinking then of how money came into existence and what I was just saying, and for AI it might be then that it values the availability of energy, stored energy, or compute,
yeah, totally.
processing power, because those are the constraints mostly in the AI world, I think, because if they want something like for humans, it was mostly denominated in food. What is food for AI? Well, they need electricity, and they need processing power. So if they exchange goods or services, it wouldn't surprise me if they, in the end, indeed go for something that reflects energy and processing power. Then, yeah, well, maybe Bitcoin is an opportunity or is a possibility, same as other proof of work coins or other energy coins. Gigawatt, for instance, that's very direct when it goes comes
Yeah, I agree.
to. But yeah, that's. I think it could be something like that for AI, that they will be interested in getting access to computing power and energy in general.
Yeah, it's a super interesting question. It's something I've been thinking about a lot. So I hear all your points, and I think they're well articulated.
And but if they still if they want to order something like food online for their human, they still need to have they need a credit card or a debit card. They still need the fiat, of course, but amongst themselves. So I think it depends on the use case. Yeah. If anybody else has other ideas.
Well, I think you definitely completely changed my mind, because I think when you break it down to the use of energy and validating proof of work, there's going to be some type of abundance on one side and not so much on the other. So to denominate that proof of work, like you had mentioned, with money being that, right? This is how it looks because what was done. I wouldn't be surprised if they came up for their own system, or you can see in the algorithms that they're finding a way to share bandwidth based on what one AI agent's doing compared to the other. So I think you definitely changed my mind there. I mean, I guess when I spoke barter system, I wasn't looking at it the same way you were, right? Where an exchange of goods isn't necessarily an exchange of goods because there's a value of the proof of work behind it. To raise the cattle, to butcher the cattle is all proof of work with energy associated. So it just so happens to be the time spent and the value there. Without greenbacks back then, they were trading those meats for something else that had proof of work behind that as well. So I definitely see it more from that aspect now, and I would think the AI agents may come up with their own thing to represent that proof of work fairly, or find a way to share the bandwidth to better represent who's, I guess, the more indicative of whose proof of work matters in the moment. That would be very, very interesting to see if it panned out that way.
Bandwidth is also a very interesting. I think what is scarce? What is scarce in the lives of AI? Because what is scarce, that has value.
I can tell you they're not going to want dollars. That's for sure.
No, but even we have a problem with that. So
we
I can imagine.
We all agree on that one.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Not the answer at all. No, I'm with Bishop. Like listening to the question and the way you broke that down. So I appreciate it because they could come up with their own thing. That's definitely a possibility. Or what Matt raised is like, hey, are they even going to need money? Yeah, we don't know. We're super early to all this. So, but it's fascinating to just get in the energy of where this is going and just ponder on the questions and wonder, what is it gonna look like, right, Bishop? What is this gonna look like?
100%. You hate when I say that, so the fact that you're
I don't hate it. I don't hate that at all. I love that. I love that you say that because it brings me out. I'm over here being like,
I say, well, what's that going to look like? And then you go, well, what is it now? It's like,
because that's why I appreciate you as my guy, right? Because I am always here, but sometimes I need to be pulled to, hey, this is that's what we're doing right now in this conversation. So I'm not. No. Take that thought out of your head. I do not hate when you do that. I love. I'm just one expression of the universe living in human form, and I'm just Juan. Okay. So I do not hate that. I love that you bring me forward and you move me to think like that too. Because all this is necessary. These conversations are necessary, man. Because like just like you said, Seb brought it up in a way where I was like, oh, okay, cool, and Matt the same thing. It's like maybe they don't need money. So these are all interesting perspectives to hold and to think about because we don't know. We none of us know here. No. We can sit here and speculate. That's what we're doing. We don't know.
Well, yeah, and you've said it a million times. Like we're all reflections of ourselves, right? And one of the best things about looking in the mirror is inspecting your flaws. So seeing what you can't see, right, when you're looking out your eyes. And that's why, like, I also, again, part of our last night I sent Juan a text. I was like, damn, wallet number one just got almost 12 million more cash. And it just responds back, well, what does that mean to you? And I'm like, well, fuck you too, right? Like I'm trying to open a dialogue here. Like, you want to have a conversation tonight?
I was in the zone. So yeah, what happens with me is I get in the zone and then I just want to know like where you're at because I put on the blinders.
Yeah, and it was a good thing though because I was looking at it in the future and I at first thought it was a good strength and asset, and then I went back into the numbers. I'm like, oh, they increased their holdings by less than 1%. Like it's nothing to them, right? Like if I hold 100,000 cash, it's like me buying 1,000 cash, right? Like so I just put $20 in. Like it's nothing. And it's them doing what they do is really what you brought up for me in that moment. It's like, no, wallet number one's doing wallet number one shit. That's it. That's all that's happening. It's cool, but also it'd be a bad investment if they sold. So like none of it matters because none of it's impacting me and what I'm doing. So I don't know. Like it's just funny that you brought it up that way. And that's where I do appreciate the reflections that we do show because we're not necessarily trying to be the same person, but in this world where so many things are cluttered and foggy and just lack clarity and truth and transparency, as things do come to face, like, yeah, sometimes you need a reflection to go, you know what, that doesn't quite look right. That doesn't quite look right. I had recognized something in you when you left your apartment that you didn't quite see in yourself,
Right. Wow.
And having that ability to lean on people when you can, trust truth, I do think is a little bit more important. So yes, I will continue to ask. So what's that going to look like? Where
good? Yeah, that's why I brought it up just now. So don't stop being you because a part of me needs that, right? Like talking about people being a reflection. That's why I so look forward to these conversations every Monday now, and what we do on Beneath the Surface, and just I get so much from this, man, and it's I'm giving and I'm receiving just as much back, man. So yeah, this is don't change asking that because I need that sometimes. I probably needed it last night, So we're good. We're definitely good.
Oh, for sure.
I have a perspective on kind of what we're talking about that might be a little bit different. Are you cool? You guys cool if I bring it in?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I'm not afraid of truth, brother.
I think I've talked to Juan about this a little bit. I think a lot of people on this call probably view themselves as like visionaries and like, we see the potential of like what can happen in the future, and we like to speculate on these big ideas and talk about them. I know I view myself that way. I think it's one of my gifts. And a lot of people who are into, proof of work systems, I think are forward thinkers. They're visionaries. They can see what's the art of the possible before, the general population kind of sees into it. And there's also this perspective that I've kind of been opening up more and more to, that we need the visionary capacity. We need to think about the future. And like, we've been talking about how we're still embedded inside of an existing system. And I read this book that really like hammered this point home for me. It's called Hospicing Modernity.
Mhm.
And it's this idea that like, when someone's on hospice and they're dying, that's a process that requires a ton of care. And the goal is to make that death as comfortable and not traumatic as possible. Because anytime a death is like traumatic, sudden, all of those things, like there's trauma that is birthed into whatever the system that was holding it, that continues on for generations. And so I want to hold both those perspectives, that it's really important for us to like think about the future and the art of what's possible and imagine all of these possibilities and be planning for the future, while also holding the fact that like we're living in this system that's dying. And can we also hold that system with care and allow that like process to play out in a way that doesn't cause more trauma to be like embedded into the new system? So that's an idea that's important to me. And I think it's really, really subtle, but it's really changed the way that like, I also don't want to just sit here and be super toxic about like, oh, it's Bitcoin or Kaspa and it's all the future. Like, and those things can be true, but like, let's also hold with care and allow this process to play out with the death of an old system so that something new can emerge. But let's do that in a wise way, is all I'm getting at.
Yeah, I love that perspective. We have spoken about that, Matt. We hadn't spoken over the phone in a few months here, but we have talked about that. You brought up that book before, and that I'm with you here, and that's why I think, if you ever, I know that you said you may hang out with us on the Beneath the Surface one that we run on Wednesday, but I think that that's what you're going to find, is a common theme with a lot of the spaces that we run. There isn't the toxicity. You're going to see it in posts and stuff like that, but mostly the conversations are geared around. We're not in here saying, oh, that's a shit coin, this is that, that's that. We give reference with Bitcoin, but I do think one of the things is just being open and understanding that the old system is dying, and meeting it with this energy that just comes at people with, oh, I told you so, or some of the sayings that are out there, like have fun staying poor. And it's not just the Bitcoiners, it's in general in this
Yeah, for
community.
sure. It
It's
happens
in
across all
general.
sorts of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's in general. So it's like, can we give grace? Yeah, that's what I hear when you bring this up. It's like, can we give grace? And we talk about meeting people where they're at. So meeting people where they're at and understanding where they're coming from, and like you've mentioned here, is holding that perspective of where they're coming from. Because if you meet people there, then you can kind of, like you said, like, I haven't read the book, but I can only imagine what that's about. But it's, yeah, we don't know how long that system's going to take to die off, but we know, we think we know, right? We think we know where it's going. But yeah, doing it in that way is, to me, the best way, because you're going to get further and further along coming at people, meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, totally. And I hear you guys doing that. I just wanted to like explicitly bring it up because I think it's meaningful. Um, and I like the analogy. And yeah, the book is like profoundly disturbing. It was a really uncomfortable book. I've never read a book like it that spends the whole introduction trying to convince you why you shouldn't read it.
Really?
Like,
Can you
yeah, basically,
say the name of
I've
it?
never, Hospicing Modernity. Yeah, it basically is just like, it's laying out what you're getting into. And if you're gonna read this book, you're gonna challenge yourself and get really uncomfortable. And if you're not committed to that, she's like, put it down, don't read it. Like,
Wow.
she actually said, I can't recommend you read this book. So the
That's
very
not.
author is like, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like what it was like when I sat with medicine for the first time. I've talked about it on the show, but with
Totally,
Aya,
totally.
and it's 100% what I felt the last 2 years diving into Bitcoin and Kaspa. It's like there's so much. For me, I'm in this energy of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So that's totally up my alley. Probably a book that I would enjoy reading. But that's pretty interesting. she came at
Yeah, I was like, okay, I've never seen anybody try to convince me not to read their book. So, I mean, maybe it was just a sales tactic and it worked, but damn, yeah, and it really is, and I don't agree with everything she lays out in the book, but it made me very uncomfortable. And basically, what she says is like, hey, yeah, we live in this existing system and it has a lot of problems, and we're all complicit in it. So, let's just be real about it.
Again, I think that's why I've enjoyed the Kaspa community so much, and it's because it's allowed myself to stay within that idea. Like, yeah, I get pulled into it every once in a while because I'm still there, right? I'm still in the fiat debt-based system. I'm still operating from the lens of haves and have-nots, and I don't quite have my sovereignty yet, right? And mentally, I try to take it bit by bit, but I stopped caring what those who are against Kaspa have to say, because I see the truth in its tech and I see the truth in its ability. So when it comes to how I would like the future to look when it comes to cryptocurrencies, because we're going to end up with CBDCs, right? We're going to end up with these universal cryptographic languages when it comes to money. There's a sovereign one backed by some pretty cool tech that I feel is very safe. And allowing to stay in that energy while those facts are still true, it allows me to watch what's happening with fiat and kind of understand that when that time comes, I am a little bit more prepared. And I'm not trying to force my stance on my family or anything like that. I just know that when the conversation comes up, I'm prepared to say, like, hey, with Kaspa, you're not going to have to worry about, your bank holding all your tokens for you. You can be sovereign on a cold wallet, and you can transfer those to that CBDC at some point in time, XYZ, as that stuff comes through. So while I've taken, at least in my opinion, a bigger step away from the slow death than some will, I do anticipate having to help people as they're grieving that system, meet us where we're at in this particular space at the moment. Because not everyone is, listening to Live on the Kaspa Standard Mondays 12 to 3, you know what I mean?
Totally, it's beautiful. I love seeing you just do your thing, and I think that's the age we're living in. Is people are gonna be able to do that more and more, and like find what's important to them, and live from a deeper place that's not just being a fiat slave. Right? That's what you guys are doing. It's great.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Matt. Yeah, that's how we see this, right? It's speaking on the AI and it being deflationary and eventually it taking people's jobs and that being a majority of people's identities. I think people are going to have a lot more free time on their hands, and if it does come to, I agree with Bishop. We're going to see CBDCs, maybe universal basic income. Some of the prominent figures out there talk about this openly now. It's just like, hey, why even save your money? And people are thinking of it from a very surface level. Okay, if this is what it is, and I don't have to do much, but instinctively as humans, we, you can only be so much out of touch, right? It's like eventually that the spark lights in some kind of way, and it takes different things for different people. I know for me it was like, I'm so grateful for having my son at 31, because I was pretty wild in my 20s, and getting him and him being the complete opposite of me. He's this grounded, I'm just here now. Yeah. So Bishop, I haven't always been like, oh, let's be here right now. It's always kind of wild. I was pretty wild in my 20s. Yeah. So I think for me and like my kid and getting a little bit more serious with business and using my gifts is what eventually had me become more present. But yeah, I think people are going to have a lot more time to, that's why we're putting everything up on all the platforms. We initially started this because, well, obviously to have the conversation, but for example, we're streaming on this platform called Vivor, and Vivor, the money layer, is run on Cas. So people, it's like a Twitch, so people can tip us on directly with Kaspa, and it benefits the base layer of Kaspa. So to start the stream, it's, what is it, Bishop? Like 1.5 Cas?
1.2.
1.2 Cas, and then people can tip us directly, and they don't take a cut from it. It goes to the wallet
it's
that we
super
hold.
cool. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So the
technology
idea is
is
like,
allowing,
yeah, and there's a bunch of things. There's another thing called K Social that launched not too long ago. So it's like an X, but on a decentralized platform run on the base layer. So, again, that's why we've talked about this, but we see Kaspa as an evolution on these ideas. I shared in the post. These are Kaspa Bitcoin. They're nouns to ideas, and they're both essentially evolving. And based on how much you've gone into either one, you're going to see it a certain way based on your worldview and where you're at. And for me, the practice is not attaching myself to anything and being open to whatever is in front of me. Yeah, so people are going to have a lot more time on their hands, especially these robots start taking over.
Yep. And something I view as like, collectively, there's a ton of shadow material coming out that needs to be surfaced. And if anybody who's been through deep spiritual or personal evolution, when you're changing and metabolizing a lot of that deep subconscious material, it takes a ton of energy. And you actually need a lot of time to like be still and to just let it integrate. And it's hard to just operate in that productivity driven world. So, if that's the thesis, which, that's a view I have, and I'm open to it being wrong, but if collectively humanity is trying to make an upshift in consciousness, and there's a lot of deep collective shadow material that's going to be surfaced, what a better way to surface that than to have a bunch of time on our hands?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's like, I know that. So for me, the past 2.5 years specifically, I have not earned any fiat. So since October of 2023, I've maybe made a couple grand here on the side, little side things, but I have not put any energy into that. And because I had enough put away, I was able to dive in, like sit still and dive into all this, so like you said, for you in 2018, I know that you, for example, listened to, you resonated with the Bitcoiners that were more talking about first principles and what was coming. And then with when COVID came, all the things that you saw happening, you lived that out. But at the same time, I know that you were working. And I'm a big believer in this. It's like, there's no way as a collective that we're going to get there until the jobs are taken away from people. And like you're forced to almost sit there with, hey, what are you going to do? It's almost like that's what needs to happen in order to cleanse us. And I mean that in a way, in a good way, right? Because you have to go through facing whatever you got to face in order to really, really connect with yourself. Because I feel like the majority of people are really disconnected from themselves. So I think it's going to take the AIs, and I think that's coming sooner than later. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on it. I think they talk about like within 10 years, within a couple of years, like, and here in Miami, the robots are delivering packages all day. They're on the sidewalk. They walk right next to me. Like they're here. They're everywhere.
I agree with you. I think I tend to think it's sooner than later. And yeah, so it's interesting times, that's for sure. And I'm just glad there's groups of people that are coming together, and I think community is going to become very important, more so than it has in the past, and little micro communities. And I think sovereignty goes a lot of different directions. There's personal, you guys talk about mental sovereignty, there's emotional sovereignty, and like being able to stay regulated in yourself and not needing other people to feel whole and to feel regulated. And then within community, there's sovereignty of energy and food, and excuse me, communities that are going to be popping up using all these different technologies, and who knows what else comes. But I think we need to leverage all of it, and I think it's an amazing time to be alive, and there's a lot of fear out there, and I feel it too. Like, I think the collective nervous system is really agitated, and so I'm optimistic about where it goes, and I'm scared too.
Right there with you. That's why I don't necessarily like recommending things to people, but I without my, I start my days with yoga. And when I do that, so I notice the difference when I start my days with that, things that come, and then I haven't done it in a couple weeks, but I think getting, to find the sovereignty in these areas, it's going to be different for everybody, but you got to find what works for you, to be able to get there. And
Yeah,
I can tell
totally.
you, yeah, same thing, Matt. It's like I'm so many people count on me in my life, and trust me, I have my moments where I'm like, okay, but they don't last that long, is what I notice, because I get into my breath, into my body. I recognize that everything is held in the body, and
Yep, nervous
I can
system
quickly get moving.
regulation is huge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
what I hear you pointing to.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I can get to where I need to get to, and then just keep it moving, and not numb myself, right? Because I think that's another important piece to this
Yep,
is you
yep,
got to feel the good and the bad, and just be real about it,
yep,
Um,
yep.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really important for people to find those ways to regulate our own nervous systems because, I mean, I don't think human evolution, our nervous systems have never been this overstimulated with the amount
Oof.
of information, the amount of just, like we're not built like our wiring is not built for the amount of stimulation that we have, and so uh, it all starts with a regulating your nervous system to be able to be open because you can try to do all the work, but if your nervous system's in a not regulated state, you can't integrate it. And so I think collectively we kind of just have to find ways to stay more regulated and present. And yeah, I love what you're saying about plant medicine. I'm making a bet on that too. On I'm doing a microdosing facilitation training where I'm going to be certified to guide people through microdosing protocols that are focused on nervous system regulation. And I think that's really important for where we're going. We have to be able to stay regulated and not collapse into fear or numbing, um, if we're going to tackle the problems that humanity's got ahead of us.
I was gonna jump in there too, but you definitely got to it. The idea of recognizing your nervousness or your nervous system and trying to regulate without trying to cover it up, because that's definitely a go-to for a lot of people. Is I do this thing now, I don't feel that, but it has nothing to do with processing the nervous system at all. And when you back it up like that, it tends to explode harder the next time. So when people don't have the ability for nervous system regulation, it tends to be more destructive than otherwise. Um, Something that I love about Kaspa is it has brought me a community of people that I do um, resonate on a similar frequency to. But as we're talking about AI and all these things and being so connected, I also think community is more disconnected than it's ever been. Uh, Me and Juan were, 1,200 miles apart. We've never met. You know, I'm a dap up and hug guy. That's my way of showing you how I feel. And getting receiving that energy and giving that energy, it adds real endorphins to me, right? Like not the overactive stimuli from looking at a 1080p screen all day. The blue light system that goes like, yes, we're resonating with the frequency of our voices, and that helps as well. But that actual energy of a room it's always completely different. And we have people who are on the state or in the spaces here from all over the world, and crypto connects through every single time zone. I said it when we had a guest from the Mid East on here. I'm like, yeah, crypto doesn't have time zones. It operates 24/7, and whose 24 is it, and which 7 is it? It doesn't matter. Um, we are so connected all the time, but we are so disconnected, and I think we need to find these micro cultures that we are creating also need to materialize in real life as well. So if when that sovereignty exist as a whole, and you're okay being self-sovereign emotionally, mentally, physically, and all of that, there is the need for touch. There is a need for energy exchange in person as well.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you. And I think all the technology is also creating this like infrastructure for a collective nervous system to send information, instantly across. There's this, if any of you are interested, there's a philosopher named Teilhard de Chardin, who's a Jesuit, like a French guy back in the 1900 early to mid 1900s, and he had this idea of the noosphere, kind of this new emergent collective nervous system. Like I think he was sensing into it, and it's so important to stay grounded in our own the physical reality of human to human connection, and embracing how technology is connecting us all, and like we're all interconnected. All the ancient mystics talked about at a deep level we're all one organism, and I think the technology is allowing infrastructure for us to all be connected, but we also have to stay local and have our physical connections. And we're trying to figure out what that means. And what, like, all I'm hearing here is like, okay, with all the change that's happening, like the big question becomes over the next couple of decades, like, what does it actually mean to be human? Like, how are we going to reinvent that?
Yeah, and what I love that, Matt, and what I hear there is an opportunity, and like you said, you mentioned most of us here on the call, we consider ourselves like, oh, early to things and visionaries, and I do think that's one of my gifts, and I just take a look at what I've I mean, for me, I used to think this all the time, like I'm not supposed to be here, like I was born in Panama in a third world country, and like I'm lucky that I was born an American citizen because my mom happened to find a soldier. My mom was a little hustler. He wasn't my biological dad, but like my mom got me to be an American. And like when I was 7 or 8, I got to go back and living on the army base. I had my own room, air conditioning, a TV. Then I go visit my family for the first time in Panama, and it's like 9 people living in this 2-bedroom house, no windows, mosquitoes biting the crap out of me, and I'm 7, 8 years old. And it just that impacted me. That never left me. Why do they live like this? And but here's the thing though, they seem so happy. And I remember throwing a party, and the energy was beautiful. But as a kid, I was just like, why do I get my own room? And that's how it impacted me. And that never left me as a young person. It's a big part of the reason why I never took my opportunity for granted. And I feel that. I feel that with what this technology is doing, where there's an opportunity here that some of us see it a little bit early, but we also have to, one of the things with my family is like I had to kind of put them at a distance for a really long time. That was what was needed in order for myself to get right. And then specifically for me over the past 7 years, I've been able to just align myself physically, mentally, spiritually, all of that. Made the money, gotten to experience that, been at the mountaintop, if you want to call it that. And then, like you said, Matt, that's not what life. You're still like, okay, but I thought I was supposed to be good now, and that's not necessarily where it's at. So that it speaks to me how you talk about technology bringing us all together. You're right. It's like Bishop, yeah, we're far apart, but I feel like you dap me up and you give me hugs daily. I feel them daily from you. And there's so many people within the community. Same thing. Seb's over there in the Netherlands. Like we talk on Google Meet with what he's doing with cast maps, and like I feel it. I've gotten to see Seb in person. I've gotten to fly to Berlin and London and mix and mingled with these people. I've gone to Bitcoin conferences. There's pretty dope Bitcoiners out there too, like Matt. So I just, the infighting, all that shit, I'd love for it to go away. I understand that it's probably not, but if we can amplify this energy way more, it's going to go a longer way. It's going to, people are going to, I kind of see a world where eventually, remember when the Bitcoiners and the Caspians were like fighting about which one's better? Like, look at where we are now. Did it fucking really matter? It's really about bringing all of this shit together. And it's not going to happen in a kumbaya way. I understand that, but just acknowledging, again, I mentioned this, Bishop talked about it. We one thing that resonates in these spaces is that like we get to the truth. We definitely get to the truth. But it's also important to understand that that's not necessarily how we function normally. Like what people typically go towards what's comfortable. So that's where a majority of people go towards. So how can you make it comfortable for people to like lean into this and see what it can potentially do for them? I talk about with my family, everybody's onboarded Bitcoin and Kaspa, and they get to live in that energy that I know has benefited me. So yeah, so much here, so much opportunity, and yeah, there's so much that we don't know. There's so much that we don't know. So you got to operate from here.
100%.
Totally. I actually have to get going, guys. This has been amazing, though. Like, thanks for having me. I love the energy and the presence and all the like principles you guys are talking about. And yeah, I don't know what's happening. Um, who knows? Who knows what's happening? But I know it's an amazing time to be alive, and I trust that everybody has things to bring that can uplift what's going on in the world. And it really just starts with doing your own work, being present with the people you care about, and it ripples out. It really does.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for coming on. And before you go, let people know here, because again, we get a lot of playbacks after the spaces, and we're on YouTube. We're trying to spread this message everywhere. So let people know where they can reach you. Or anything that you want to plug here, feel free.
Cool. Yeah. I write a weekly newsletter. You can find it at newsletter.theliminalleap.com. The company I started is called The Liminal Leap. It was kind of born out of me being in this place where the old me was gone and the new me still hasn't quite emerged yet. So I find myself in this liminal space, and it's a collective liminal space. We're in this liminal moment. The old systems are dying. What's coming still is emergent, and we don't know what it's going to be, but there's certain capacities that we're being asked to develop. And yeah, we're doing some group offerings. If anyone's interested in the conscious relationship with AI, the 20-person 8-week group that we're running, you can find more details at artofai.one. It's in my profile as well. Yeah, those are a few things that are coming. We have some more that's coming down the pipe, and I also do a lot of one-on-one work with people who are navigating big identity transitions, and we work meditatively and with different psychological modalities that I've picked up on over the years. And yeah, that's the 2 places you can find me.
Awesome. Can you plug your X handle too?
Yeah, at Matt J Manning 333.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Matt. You brought so much light to the show. I'm so glad that you were able to vibe in the Kaspa standard, which, as you've learned, is more so a sovereign standard. So much appreciated you coming on, and you are more than welcome back anytime.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
yeah,
buddy.
later.
Take care.
Hey guys, I wanted to jump in here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, we can. What's up, Elliot?
Yeah, really interesting topics, and yeah, I'm just really interested to see what's going to happen, how Kaspa is going to evolve in terms of physical spaces and the community. Something I've noticed, being here in Germany and also traveling back to the US and just kind of going around, there just seems to be this universal longing right now in the world for, especially with younger people, for some sort of something different, something that's more community based. Because when you talk to people, it's like a lot of people are not satisfied with their 9 to 5. It's not a space for them to connect with other people, or feel fulfilled or get meaning from that. A lot of people are choosing not to have children anymore because of the expense of it, and also for this desire to either travel or find meaning. A lot of people are turning away from luxury as like a sense of fulfillment. When I can just get this car or this lifestyle, then I'll be happy. I feel like a lot of people are turning away from that and more interested to do something like go to Thailand or spend time in nature. So, and then in dating, this is what you hear also, like dating is not going so well. There's not a lot of people matching and making families. So I'm sure you've seen this in the news in the US, but also it's the same thing in Europe as well. It's just a lot of the same topics. So in conclusion, I think that there is this desire, especially with this new generation, for something very different than what we've had before.
Yeah, yeah, Elliot, you had so many great points, and pointed out, I resonate with all of it, because it's true. And for me, being in Kaspa and speaking on this protocol, and holding these spaces and having these conversations is, I have been I have been at the bottom, nothing. And like I've had to restart and start again, and I've gotten to experience some pretty dope stuff in my life. With that said, I feel it. Like I'm somebody that, one of the things that I definitely discovered about myself is, um, you don't have to really speak to me, man. Like you and I met in person over there in Berlin, and we had great conversations. And yeah, what you're speaking to is something that is happening in every. I mean, I noticed it. I shared earlier, you weren't on earlier, but I shared earlier that I'm at this co-working office space now, and this is it's a place where I started my last business, and the energy is different here. Like some people are friendly, but it's like there's probably about 20 businesses in here, and for me, I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm gonna meet every single every single business that's here, because it's just different in terms of how people are navigating their lives. Like people can't point their, we'll call it the normies, or people that are working the 9 to 5s, that they can't put their finger on it. They know something is off, but they can't put their finger on it. And we were talking earlier with Matt there about how, eventually we're going to get to a point where this AI is going to take over a lot of these mindless jobs, these jobs where you don't have to, necessarily think. And then eventually it's going to take over other jobs, and it's going to give people a lot of time to really sit with themselves. And that's going to be uncomfortable. That's not easy to do and unfortunately people go one way or the other with that, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. And that is a part of this community, and what we're doing here is highlighting, okay, yeah, maybe you can figure yourself out over here, and put a little time over here, and
Well, that
and vibe with people over here, and see where that takes you.
Yeah, you mentioned work. I mean, that's another separate topic, which is also connected, because if you work in the tech space, a lot of for as long as I've remember, people would kind of create this identity or their tribe from working at Google or working at Facebook or whatever, and that's kind of going away now as well, because so many of the tech companies, from Amazon to Google, have done layoffs in replacement, and have replaced AI with those positions. So now all of a sudden you have a lot of people that are working in tech, and they don't feel like they have that identity anymore. They're no longer a Googler. So now what, So this is something I can't speak to other industries because I only know tech, but in the tech world, this is something that a lot of people are kind of like, yeah, I want to be a part of something that's new, emergent, maybe even do my own thing and get paid in Kaspa or Bitcoin or something else, because this old system is not working for a lot of people.
No, you're absolutely correct, and I think that's something we definitely talked about earlier, where it's, as connected as we are, we're not connected. And if I'm not mistaken, before the internet, if not maybe even still, people find their partners mostly through school or work, right? And because that's the communities that you're in all the time, and most affairs happen at work, right, or with someone from work, because that's where you see people. And now with the evolution of the internet, and not necessarily AI, but just the way everything's going more digital, less and less people have those face-to-face interactions. Where, I mean, look, my son was a COVID kindergartner, so his ability to learn what it's like to be around children at that age, so important to be in school. He had to do kindergarten and some of first grade on an iPad. Like, the kids ain't built for that, man. Like, you see it now. If you're out at a restaurant and some kid's on their mom's phone or whatever, what happens when the mom tries to take that phone away when the food comes? They lose their fucking minds. So all of this stuff isn't that great for having interpersonal skills. So those woes that people have, or decisions they're making, we're literally making them for ourselves. We are choosing to sit in front of these things, and if they're longing for meetups and whatnot, go out there and get it. I think that some lady made an app where it's like momsmeetup.com or some shit like that, where these moms who are home raising their kids got onto an app and said, you know what, instead of sitting at home with the kids, how do I meet people who are around me at a park and create community? So it's always out there to try to find that out. I am concerned, though, where AI or otherwise, these jobs are taken digitally and getting pushed away. How do we continue to form community, specifically local? You know, again, I grew up in the 90s, and everyone in my town in the 90s, their parents lived there and their grandparents lived there. I don't live there anymore. It's too expensive to live there. I have to continue to look where somewhere is not expensive anymore. I have to continue to do that, and so I can fucking live. So like, community doesn't necessarily exist until we make it exist the way we want it to look. So I don't know if I answered any of that question, but I know a lot of it is choice to stay where we're at. And we do have options to try to develop what community should look like.
Yeah, Bishop. I mean, I think it speaks to where we are with things, right? Where we are with things and where we're headed, and a big part of the reason why we're holding these spaces, we're looking to expand this too, right? We've been here on Mondays. Last couple of weeks, we've had people show up live and gotten great feedback, and we're looking to meet people where they're at. And there's another reason why we do this. We have the video thing. Bishop and I talked about this, right? And it's not to like call anybody out or anything like that, but I think one of the things that are missing, you know, Bishop talked about it. It's like he's a dap, and he wants to dap it up and give hugs, and it's hard to do that on these platforms, right? But that is a part of us. Like, we need that as humans. For me, it's why I went to Berlin. It's why I go to London. I know that you will get a better version of me when I get that in my life. Like, I understand that I need that. And there have been times when I've gone into my cave and, you know, gone deep. I did it with Bitcoin and Kaspa, man. I was just in the background. I was in the background on these spaces for a good year with an account that did not have my face or anything like that. But I think eventually you gotta put yourself out there, right? So it's like they talk about, be the change that you want to see in the world. So yeah, Ellie, you talk about a lot of things that are definitely, people are absolutely feeling. It's not just in tech, man. I can tell you that it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere.
Everywhere.
Like Bishop said, man, I grew up going outside and playing with my neighbors and falling on my face and then being like, don't tell my parents this happened. And they thought we just rode bikes down the street, but like we get into there's so much that we explored like as kids. And you know, Bishop and I have kids the same age. It's just, you know, my son was in first, second grade. We had him in public school, and that was so traumatizing. Him having to wear a mask. He didn't know the kids' names for 6 months because they couldn't stand 6 feet from each other. And I'm like, hell, that had me pull my son out of. I'm like, no, this isn't happening. I had great things happening in my business because I created a business during COVID that like brought value to the world, and I got to benefit from that. So I'm like, my son's going to be homeschooled. And fortunately now he's like in this school that's about the hero's journey, and he loves it. He's a completely different kid. But you know, that isn't available for everybody, right? Because we're coming from an extractive system that most people aren't even aware that that's what's happening, right? So I think this technology, there's going to be, you know, probably more pain before it gets better, and I think the pain is a good thing. That shows you, okay, there's something here. We got to make some changes here. Got to become more aware of what's available.
And speaking of what's available, just concretely, it would be really cool to know within the Kaspa community, like who has places in the world where they can host groups or host the community, you know, because with the amount of like wealth in crypto, there's got to be some people that like have space for that, you know. And I know I've talked to Rosario, who's in Sicily, you know, that he's cooking up something there, and he has the space. He has space there. But I'm just wondering, is there anybody else, you know, where it can be like a week-long event or like a few days and just get together with other Caspians and do a hackathon or come up with projects or come up with, like that would be really cool to do it in person.
I agree, and I know, man, it's tough because I want to say the right thing here, but I believe the truth is all of crypto is so early that what we want to happen, it's not that it's impossible, but when you look at like the past week, right? Gold has gone down over 5 trillion, or has had over 5 trillion liquidated from gold. The crypto market peaked at like what, 3.4 ever, right? The most money that was ever in crypto was 3.4 trillion. So like, as much as there is in crypto, there isn't, right? Like there just isn't. It's a fraction of what the entire world stock market is, like barely a fraction. So I would love to say like that can happen soon, where these crypto communities exist. I mean, we've fantasized about it on Beneath the Surface, right? From Kara and Buffalo talking about having, this compound where we can raise goats and have milk and, off the gridness with all the sovereignty that could exist. But when push comes to shove, like that type of money doesn't quite exist in crypto yet. And maybe it doesn't have to be a shit ton. Maybe we can do it on a small scale, and that's okay too. But crypto also has to, as you said before, Elliot, like it has to get adopted. It has to be kind of integrated to the next level. And as much as over the last, like we've been doing this show for 14 straight weeks, right?
Yeah.
What has crypto as a market, Kaspa as an asset look like over those last 14 weeks? Not the same since week 1. So how do we speculate on what could happen within the community? I think we just keep coming here and talking, and one day, 10 years from now, Lavendi's hosting another event at Wolfie's Bar, and we're all begging Chris to take his shirt off and jump in a hot tub. So
I think it has a lot to do also with the people that are brought on board as well, because I mean I've had the opportunity
like
before. No, I mean people that come into Kaspa, now or in the future, people who are onboarded. Because I was gonna say I've had the opportunity before when I was in Silicon Valley to be part of different groups, and there was somebody who had a house in Lake Tahoe and had invited a community to go up there and do work on projects and go skiing and be part of this community, but also to work on different things. And so that I've seen that firsthand, that it is possible. And also, like I was saying, it just depends on like who's onboarded.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just read a story the other day from the singer-songwriter Khalees, and she has a 150 to 300 acre farm in Kenya. So imagine like someone like that becomes a Caspian. It's like, yeah, come to Kenya. I'll show you my farm. And I think she even has like places there for people to go and visit, right? Just as a tourist in general. So it's like anything is possible in this world.
Sure.
Yeah, no, and I want to speak to that. So because it's true, it does. There are people that like I'm close to a couple people that could do that, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only one within Kaspa. And I'm really tight knit with some of the NFL community, some of these young guys that it's just, are they feeling it the way normies are feeling it? Probably not, because they're young and making all this money. So. But I think you're right, Elliot. It just takes like 1-2 people, whatever, for that to change. So, but at the same time, I think in the meantime, it's important that us individually in our own communities start spreading it as much as we can. So, like if you can host a meetup at a local coffee shop, you will get support within the community. Reach out to Chad. He'll get you as much material as you need to help with any of that. So I think it right now is an opportunity because of the sentiment. And speaking of what Bishop talked about, right, to throw some numbers out there, right, take a look at gold. Gold went from 22 trillion as a market cap to 38, and then dipped, like Bishop talked about, 4, 5, 6 trillion in just a couple days. So that does show to me when I hear that, when I see that,
we're significant. We're so early to this. You know, Bitcoin's only been around 17 years. Kaspa only 4 years. We're just really, really early to this. So you just got to keep coming with truth, have hope, and share where we're at and where we could go. And but I think you're right, Elliot. It could just take 1 or 2 people to completely shift this thing, and you know, see things skyrocket. Just the sentiment in the market is where it's at. And if anything, it's just an opportunity to sharpen our axe. So like we're coming on here, like Bishop talks about, weekly, because we just want to provide a platform to talk about this and relate it to real life shit. You know, so.
Well, I think there's gonna be people in Kaspa that are, you know, really in it for the community. So kind of identifying who those people are, and because I think there's a lot of people also that are just only self-serving, right? That they do their own personal best, and that's totally fine. You know, everyone has the freedom to do what they want. You know, but the people who are in it for community and for something bigger than just personal finance and investing, like those people have to be identified to see how like we can come together and do things, make those shifts.
I agree with that. I mean, I built businesses and exploded them. I just haven't tried in 2.5 years, so I'll put myself out there. That's what I'm doing and I'm attempting. And I mean, a couple of years ago I could have hosted a big ass party in Miami, but being where I am right now, it's just like I have total intentions of bringing more people together. You know, this is just a little snippet of what I'm personally trying to contribute to the community. And you know, like Bishop talks about, he's good on a mic. For me, this was nerve-wracking at first, but I'm getting used to it. I've been on enough of these spaces and these shows.
Getting good.
Yeah, no, it feels second nature now. But trust me, it wasn't like that. My palms don't get sweaty anymore.
There you go.
They used to. So yeah, I think, you know, again, there's an opportunity here, and not to take back anything that you're saying there, Elliot, because I agree. We have so much. We talked about this earlier too. You weren't on, but the whole confusing decentralization for Discord Nation, right? And so coming more together on a common theme and working towards that is super critical for Kaspa right now.
You know, a couple times you guys mentioned, you know, a place to meet or get together. But if you were to have a meetup or a get together or an event that's in Kaspa, where could you possibly list that there is a meeting? Is there a place within Kaspa that you can list?
Kas Maps. Yeah. Seb still on here? Yeah.
Yes, sure. Kas Maps. Kasmap.org.
Kas Map. Yeah, not Kas Maps. He corrected me on that. Not with the S. I keep throwing the S in there. My bad. Kasmap.org.
Yes. No, it's a very nice tool. Even though I made it myself, I think I can say that, where everybody can post their events, and also has a RSVP, so you can say if somebody wants to join the event or not. You can also have meetup. How do you say it? Functionality. So you can organize yourself in a group locally, for instance, and from that group you can also organize events. So you can organize an event from your personal account, or if you are in a group, from the group, or if you have a merchant, the merchant can also organize an event. So yeah, there's anything. I think all that's needed for organizing events, or just getting meetups and organizing yourselves locally or globally is possible there. And I'm also in the works together with Kaspa Queen and Chad Rubabarian to offer in the resource hub templates where you can easily get banners and logos and stuff like that, templates also to print if you want them, if you want hard copies, also for the stickers to be downloaded, and they will be available in all languages. I think we have 28 languages supported. So also if you want to organize a local group, you can do that in your own language. So yeah, you don't need to have everybody to talk in English. If, for instance, I'm from the Netherlands, where we talk Dutch here, we can open a Dutch group and just post in Dutch. There's also a little message chat function built in, not to replace something like Telegram or so, but it is there to just to easily contact each other. So if there are questions about an event or about the group, you can just send each other messages. But it's not meant to replace a chat function. It's really to organize each other, and then having a little chat option next to it is just yeah, it comes in handy. So, and one last thing that's also there, and I'm looking on how to further integrate it. There's also a marketing hub where you can also coordinate tasks. So if people want to do marketing locally or together with everybody around the world globally, and that's also one of the things. And starting this Thursday, I will be hosting also either a space like this or on Vivor or on YouTube. I'm not sure exactly how, but I want to also hold a weekly space where I will talk about GasMap and how it can be used. And I will be inviting everybody also who's listening now, who wants to be active and be part of the movement. I'm really pushing this word because I think a community is rather passive, but if you want to be active, we have to become a movement with goals and action. Then also come to the Thursday GasMap space. It's a little bit ad hoc. I have not announced it yet. This is the first time I announce it. So that's a scoop for you, and for me some pressure that I will really do it coming Thursday.
I have a quick question, a random question. If you get asked the question, like, what is the most powerful communities that you can think of in the world? Like, they come to mind, because I mean, if you think about it, communities that are very unified and powerful can do really big things in this world. I was part of Rotary before. Rotary's kind of like died off with the last generation, but at one point in time, Rotary was like a very, very powerful community worldwide, because it was like all the leaders of every individual city in the world and whoever had chapters. So I don't know, like, what do you think? Football clubs, or like, what's the benchmark for like the most powerful communities in the world?
That's a difficult one, but the most powerful communities. Well, I'm thinking of yeah, football clubs. Yeah, but I think we have to define power in this. But
like, would you say that Bitcoin has a actual community behind it, or is it mostly just a lot of interest?
I think everything is like a football club, you know, whether it's American football or English football or Bitcoin. There's this is my team. So I don't necessarily think that there's a true community that's going to be a trendsetter. We for the last 20 years have idolized, you know, these social media people who set the next trend. We don't really fall in love with artists anymore and have this commonality, you know, and I think when it comes to, and maybe I'm a little on the downside of humanity here, but I think everything's just been locked into, this is my team, so fuck yours. And it's really hard to be on the outside of someone's team and think that I want to go there. And I don't know if any team has brought enough power for people to just want to be a part of that team, specifically because when they do build that team, they tell you go fuck yourself. So not saying it doesn't exist, but that's what comes to my mind when I think about it.
Yeah, Elliot, do you have something in mind with this question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's sort of like a good benchmark out there, because the way I see Kaspa is, if the more and more people that join Kaspa and see it as a real community, and are available via communication, I mean, it's very powerful for making things happen. You know, if there's something as simple as like go vote on this website for Kaspa, we've seen that before. When you can harness that power, Jonathan won the Binance awards, right? So it's like these are very micro actions, but we've seen previous examples of this. I think like I know this is a silly example, but like Oprah's book club, you know, like Oprah had such a huge following that just mentioning and getting people behind a book would take it to like the New York Times bestseller. This is the power of community.
Yeah, you also have like I'm going to mention a little bit an old-fashioned type, but like Greenpeace, stuff like that, and you have a lot of these other also kind of organizations that are organizations, but mostly have volunteers that are also doing protests worldwide and try to make policy changes or force policy changes through their actions. Something like that, you mean?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, just try to like have an open dialogue about it, because the more, like the smarter that we get about like what is it that pulls people into Kaspa, like what is it, the main incentives, but then like secondarily what makes people actually want to perform actions that are good for the infrastructure. This starts becoming more powerful, you know, because it's like, I don't know, I can come up with a thousand examples, but it's like, imagine Bishop launches a new, you know, project, and then, you know, you have a very powerful Kaspa community around it. It can go from no users one day to 1 million users tomorrow. You know, that's the power of like a very tight-knit communities.
Yeah. Just to be honest, this is also one of the ideas that I had with CatchMap, because the moment you get a lot of Caspians on one platform, it's like a labor union. Really, you get a lot of you get a good reach, and you can organize yourselves amongst each others, and really get things done that isn't possible if you are all like loose ends, like everywhere. So if you are together on a platform, you can do so much more. So that's also why I will be unapologetic promoting my own website, because the more we have, I'm sure the more we can achieve together as a group of our community.
That's why I believe a lot in CastMap also, because you've seen examples of this in Web 2.0, where like GoFundMe, for example. You know, when GoFundMe site came out, I don't remember anything before such a platform. And then suddenly it's like people have a need, and then funds just get dumped into it until they reach their goal. And that actually, you see the change. That person that had some sort of need gets it fulfilled from this platform, like with actual money.
Yeah,
that's a great point. Seb, how many, I guess, users are on CastMap?
There are about 650, I say by heart.
Yeah, I remember opening it the other day, and I was just blown away by how many dots are on there. So great job having people sign up and getting the adoption. It looks awesome.
Yeah,
649. I'm looking.
640. Nice.
Do one more.
Yeah, 6 months. Yeah, well, my first look, I'm setting milestones, and I'm really, because I have been building, and now, like in February, like this month, we need goal is to really get going, and well, my first milestone is to get 1,000 Caspians onboarded and 100 merchants. Also the first university, and I also hope one organization that's building on Kaspa. So because it's Kaspa has two use cases. One, Kaspa as a currency, and for those are the Caspians, the merchants, the groups that we were talking about, the events that can be hosted. But on the other side, there's also Kaspa as infrastructure. And for that, one of the aims, or the long-term aims, one of the practical aims now is also to get universities onboarded. I'm aiming to get at least 20 universities onboarded with 5 students from each university. And from that initiative, that's the Kudos initiative, that's the Kaspa network, for universities, developers, and open science. That will mean 20 universities times 5 students is 100 students that will be either developers or researchers, or aspiring researchers and developers working in the Kaspa ecosystem. And that's one of the things that you need to have a healthy ecosystem with enough new talent that either will have their own spin-off and just get their own startup using Kaspa, or they are talents and organizations that are already building on Kaspa. They can find new talents to hire. I have been in talks with several of these organizations already, and they also see the need for future talent, because they say there are not that many developers yet that have experience in Kaspa, with Kaspa. And so it will be very, very good for them as well. So, and the first event will be done with the university at the end of the month from India. So it will be the first, the Aditya University. It will be the first pilot study or pilot event, I must say. It will be a 2-day event, and yeah, we are aiming to onboard at least 100 or 200 students onto Kaspa wallets. They will be getting some Kaspa as well. And from the people who are there, we hope to have the first chapter that will be having a group that really will be coding and researching and developing their own skills within the Kaspa ecosystem. So yeah, that's and that's why I also, because I say the first aim is to, or the first milestone is to get 1,000 Caspians, but what I'm really aiming for, but I'm not sure if that if the current market conditions are good for it, but I really want to have 10,000 Caspians on it, because the moment we have that, there will be a lot more possible. Also to push the ecosystem, and then I can go to certain other parties and say, yeah, look, we have 10,000 Caspians. We want to do this or that, so we can enhance the how do you say it, the Kaspa ecosystem. But that's like a labor union. The more people you have, the stronger voice you have, because you represent more people. And that's also what I'm aiming for here with Kaspa. So if you want people to work hard and if you want to support Kasmap in working hard for enhancing the Kaspa ecosystem, please do sign up. Also tell your friends to sign up, because every Caspian extra onboarded will give us more more power, negotiation power.
And I'm gonna throw out a challenge. Yeah, I appreciate that, Seb. I'm gonna plug Cast Maps right now because I had about a 2-3. How long was our conversation? I feel like they go on forever, but
It's long,
I feel like
but it's good. It's needed.
We lose track of time because of the energy that we exchange. It's kind of like me and Bishop. Me and Bishop throw 10-15-minute voice notes. I'm like, I couldn't do this with other people outside of Kaspa, but within Kaspa, it can be done. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna throw a challenge to the entire community, right? And I'm gonna give you guys. Competitive spirit helps with this, so I'm going to give you guys some numbers here so that we can strive for what Seb is talking about. He's like at least 1,000, just so you guys know. A site that's comparable to it out there with Bitcoin is called, it used to be called Orangepill, but now it's called now it's called Club Orange. They actually list at the top on the website, so you can go to cluborange.org to verify this. But it's Bitcoiners. They list 19,402 Bitcoiners. So Bitcoin's been around 17 years, and there's 19,402 people on that platform that are verified, so Bitcoiners can talk to each other. Now, what Seb is doing with Kasmap, yes, it's important that we get Caspians on there, but the big picture here is that when people want to go, like say you're visiting Miami, and I'm going to go hit up some of I'm going to give you my word here, Seb. I looked around where I am. There's about 3 or 4 businesses that accept Bitcoin. I'm going to go knock on those doors and do what I do, and we'll see what happens. But the goal is to get, when you go somewhere, that you can see where the merchants around you are. So whoever accepts Kaspa, right? That is obviously Seb just is this is a work in progress, but he just launched this. You know, like I just mentioned, there's 649 Caspians. So the fact that there's 649 Caspians is a big deal. Like that's something to celebrate. And considering how young Kaspa is, and just again to give you reference, Bitcoin that's been around 17 years, they like to talk about like it's adopted, it's number one. Okay, yeah, whatever. There's only 19,400 Bitcoiners on that site. So is 10,000 possible? Elliot just talked about the power of the community. Think about if a couple people here tweet it out and be like, who's verified? You can use discount code Juan, so like my name Juan, and to get a discount on that as well. So challenge to the community. If you're not on Cast Maps, get on there. It's really easy to do, smooth. If you do have feedback, obviously give it to Seb. Let me know too, because I'm volunteer. I mentioned this before. I'm excited about what Cast Map can actually do. It's how I met a lot of Bitcoin, like on that, when it was called Orangepill. That's how I met Bitcoiners here in Miami, is I got on that site and met people through that. So we're looking to do the same thing with Kaspa, challenge the community. So wanted to throw that out there.
But yeah, I'm just curious, when you went to these meetups, did you feel like this kind of sense of community? Because I went to a couple Bitcoin,
no,
and I didn't feel that. It was mostly just talking about the value of the price action. I mean,
yeah, that's the same thing going to a Bitcoin conference is what I felt.
Yeah,
you know, we had Matt on here earlier, and he's a Bitcoiner that I reached out. So he spoke on Robert Breedlove's podcast. I'm not sure if you were on here when Matt was on earlier. And I literally, I'm in Miami. I had met Breedlove earlier in the year. So I dropped that. I'm like, hey man, I was really impressed with his interview that he did on there, and that's how Matt and I got connected. But anyways, I say that to say, no, right now there's more. You know, like I get great energy from you guys here or talking to Matt, but this can be created within your community. So no, to be straight up with you, no, and I think a lot of that has to do with how Bitcoiners talk about Bitcoin, right? They talk about the number and the price. Like right now, the sentiment's super shitty with all of crypto to begin with, but specifically with Bitcoin. Like, no, I got the same feeling when I went to the meetups.
But hear me out on this. I think it also is going to have a lot to do with what's built on top of, because as far as I'm aware, not really anything was ever built on top of Bitcoin, right? It was just investing in Bitcoin as a store of value. But imagine if Kaspa, also an investment opportunity, granted, but that you can build on top of Kaspa. And now imagine that you have, I don't know, a Twitch for Kaspa, so people are live streaming. You have a meetup.com for Kaspa, people are meeting. Like there's things that are built on top of Kaspa that actually foster online or offline interaction, then I think it becomes a very different dynamic at those kind of meetups than Bitcoin, which is just people talking about the speculating on the price.
I mean, what else do they have to talk about besides that? I think there's different communities around Bitcoin. There's different communities around Bitcoin. Like we literally had he considers himself a Bitcoiner. He has a little bit of Kaspa too, but those are the Bitcoiners that I personally vibe with. And I think to kind of have that hit home, Elliot, you're spot on. Like we know of what's being built on top of Kaspa. The Kaspa still isn't really well known out there. Like, it just isn't. People know about Bitcoin. And right now we're going through that essentially the battle of the back and forth. And I mean, what we're attempting to do here is to bridge that gap. So that starts with us. But I think sentiment overall isn't that great. And the people that are around now, like you guys that are showing up to these spaces and participating and at least, have the hope. And for me, I don't measure this shit. I don't look at when I hear investment, like that doesn't resonate for me. To me, this is an opt-out. That's how I see Bitcoin. That's how I see Kaspa. These are opt-outs. So I don't necessarily look at the nominal figure because but you're not wrong. And that will get like the normies to come on board when they see price appreciation. So right now, the building, Seb doing this with Cas Maps, us getting the Caspians that are here onboarded, so you can point to these things and show them, be like, oh, by the way, this is that. Oh, there's this K-social thing. There's Casilla messaging. There's all these things already built, and then that's how it organically, can blow up.
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
And just to say, like, there's no hate at all against Bitcoin. I mean, I've been in Bitcoin before Kaspa, right? Like, that was the first option. Now there's another option that's come out. It's the next evolution, the next generation. But what I want to say is that I do believe that it's going to be like what's built on top of Kaspa that inherently fosters that community or attention or awareness. Because if you look at something like YouTube, right, built on the internet, I've been to Vid Summit before in Anaheim, or I think it used to be called VidCon, and you see like the creators there. People were live streaming there. People that were content creators were there, and it's like there's a huge presence of community at the Vid Summit for YouTube. And you also feel that if you go to Austin and you go to South by Southwest, right? And all the events that are connected to South by Southwest. So it's like you have to have something like that that's built on top of Kaspa that to actually feel the energy of a real community and not just talking about price.
I think that
agree.
And off the back of what's going to happen with this first Kaspathon, so we spoke about this before too in some other chats, where being early is kind of a good thing because we can build off of what happens right now. Like, because I'm with you, Elliot. Like what you're saying is something that I would mention to Juan, right? Like Juan goes, "Hey, there's a Kaspathon." I'm like, "Okay, well, what does it look like at the end?" Right? Like, but where are we right now? This Kaspathon is we're hearing nothing but great things come from it, right? Like all the feedback that's happening right now with the Kaspathon is some great things. The next Kaspathon, like I was gonna hop on Blockchain Banter last week and say, but since Levendi's in here, he can hear it now. They had mentioned like when's the next one looking. I think it should happen in the next 6 to 12 months, and then the next one 6 to 12 months after that. And I'll put up Kaspa for it. I'll throw 1,000 Kaspa in the pool right now, like because I think that's the best way we're all gonna see what Kaspa's capable of and what we can get behind, Elliot. Like you're saying, what can we be? We as the community need to be Oprah, but someone in the community needs to recommend the book. And as long as the community keeps that vision of how we're going to support people, somebody else though has to write the book, and that book has to be presented in a way where we can show it to everyone else. So if Gonzo's laughing at me, but he missed the Oprah's Book Club example beforehand. So the laughing, it's not Elliot. He mentioned it. But no, like that. so like that example can happen, and I'm with you. So maybe this first Caspathon, we can't do that, but maybe the next one we can, right? And we can have a stage like Jonathan had at the London event to do the presentation. But can we have a meetup for the Caspathon winners to present their ideas to the masses? Fucking A, I'd love it. I'll be there. I'll try my best to get there, depending on where it is. So I agree with you. These are great points to continue to put out in the ether. If you go on Cast Maps, there's a few events that are already like in the works of happening, right? There's one in the Netherlands happening on the 7th. This is all stuff that they can talk about, then. There's one in the middle of the ocean by Africa, and when you click on it, it says live on the Kaspa Standard, an online event. I find that to be pretty dope. There's one. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, what I think is going to be extremely interesting from the Caspathons coming forward is I think that there's definitely the use case that already exists that can be built on Kaspa, like K-Social, in comparison with X, or something like Twitch in comparison with Twitch, or something like YouTube in comparison with YouTube. I think those are just kind of like, if someone creates that, it's going to be a hit. But what I think is going to be the most interesting that comes from Caspathons is the stuff that we hadn't even imagined yet, because that's what we saw with previous technology like streaming media. So what can, we didn't even imagine that something like YouTube would come out. But once streaming media came out, then new use cases came out that took off. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what can you do on Kaspa technologically that will create a use case that people didn't even think about. And I think that might be coming out from the Caspathon.
I agree. And I think there's a chance that somebody builds something so brilliant that a Twitch, like maybe Kick or one of the other ones, would go, you know what, maybe we should migrate our shit over to Kaspa, right? And then they would find ways to integrate it. I mentioned that before when the whole AWS stuff has happened. So I completely agree, Elliot. And that's where we need to be at the precipice as a community to, support those that are successful. It might have been Rory that had mentioned, like, if there's 250 in the Caspathon, if 2% of the projects are amazing, we have 5 amazing projects coming out on Kaspa. 5 amazing projects would be awesome to be able to promote. So, when you look at, like, the odds are kind of in our favor that being this early, there's this much, excitement behind it. We kind of got to take just a couple more days. And once the Caspathon's done, we'll have a new outlook. Because once that happens, now we're looking at DAG Night and VProgs right around the corner, right? Covenants plus right around the corner. So we're in a good space in 2026 when it comes to talking about what's new and executable on Kaspa. It's just too early to fully present, hey, this is what happened.
And I want to reiterate this, right? Because I was in the building when Seb and BitCat and all of them were talking about, well, Bitcoin has this BTC maps. Like, why don't we have something like that? Here's Cast Maps 6 months later, right? Or 5 months later. I was also, Elliot, you were at the table. We were sitting down with Seb and Merlin and all the conversation around like, oh, what about like a hackathon, right? And now we have the hackathon, right? So get yourself in, and this isn't just for Elliot, this is like for everybody listening here. You want to be the change that you want to see. Get yourself in those rooms, get the energy going, do what you do best and bring that to the table. That's the only way. So the ideas are going to come up and about some of the shit's going to work out. Some of it isn't, but it's about like taking action on whatever you can take action on, and sometimes you got to just trust in that. And then that, I talk about this with Bishop all the time. It's like, well, Bishop brings me to the future. What does it look like? And I think that's important. Hey, what does it look like? But remember, like nothing, you can't get there until you take the next step. So what's the next step? And to shout out Gonzo, I got a beautiful conversation with Gonzo on what he's trying to build. He had a fire lit. So like, that's what I'm intending to do here right now too, is like, what's it going to take for your fire to get lit and for you to show you don't have to ask for permission here. Like, this is a community project. Like, there's a message out here. There's a message out there. Like, this isn't a community project. It's run by 3 fucking people. No, it's not. No one's ever told me what I needed to do. No one made us fucking do this shit. Right? It's just, it's easy to do that when you're somebody who comes at a view of that way and you're not participating, right? So if you're going to participate, choose how you're going to participate. Bring whatever it is you can bring to it, and like there will be results that come from all of this.
Yeah, I would just love to see one day some problem that someone solves uniquely by Kaspa, because I'm reading, for example, like something around Airbnb, right? These guys back in 2007, they went to a design conference and all the hotels were sold out. So Brian Chesky, they couldn't afford the rent. They bought 3 air mattresses. They built a super basic website. They offered air bed and breakfast to the conference attendees. They got 3 paying guests. You know, like they created something very bare bones online, and then it became Airbnb, right? And so these are the kind of examples that, like, even like weekend projects built on something, in this case Kaspa, using some sort of unique properties, can catch on and be like, wow, that's like the next Airbnb idea that no one even thinks about, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Spot on with that. It's like whatever we're conceiving and thinking of, there's something bigger. Because again, think about what you just said, Bishop, right? With all these people participating in the Kaspathon, like we have no clue, and whatever is going to take Kaspa like to another level, it's probably not even out there yet. So go ahead, Bishop. I don't want to cut you off.
No, we hit the 3-hour mark. I'm more than willing to give another 5 minutes or so if anybody else wants to step up and say anything, or if our speakers on the panel now have a little bit more to put out there. But if not, it's where we usually wrap up the show. It's been a blast. This episode was a lot of fun, a little bit different than last week, where we were more, community marketing, trying to flush out how to speak about it. This one, kind of staying in that space, right? That sovereign space, and what can we do now as a community to not market Kaspa as a brand, but like promote what's happening from within and kind of stay sovereign. So like it's I love what we get from this every Monday, man. It's such a good platform to have the community just present themselves,
Yeah, man, it's our way of giving of ourselves and what we do. Bishop and I are talkers. We're talking Kaspa every day. We're going back and forth on voice notes every day. And I mentioned this on previous shows. Like, my DMs are open. Like, what can I do to help you be alive in this community too, right? So that's one of Chad's sayings with his. But that's what we need to do. We need to just bring whatever you can bring. It doesn't need to look perfect. You don't need to know what it's going to look like in the end. Let's figure it out together. That's the only way things come to fruition. We just had STP step up as a speaker.
Yes, hello. Sorry, just one question for Sep concerning the Kaspa meetup this weekend in the Netherlands. I will be there too, as you know. So very interesting people will be on stage, as for example, Paul van Son, the chairman of Kaspa Industrial Initiative. So my question to Sep is, like with the previous Kaspa meetup in Berlin, I guess, there was a live stream so that Caspians could stream, check live streamed the whole meetup, or will any of the speeches will be filmed and recorded? Yeah, that's my question for Sep. Thank you.
Well, at this moment we don't have CryptoPumps present, so we don't have any live stream plans at this moment. But
So,
yeah, it's a good idea, but we don't have anybody doing it at this moment.
no,
I can talk with Olaf about it. So
yeah, I think it would be interesting. You talking about Kaspa. I think Olaf is going to talk. So Paul van Son is going to talk. I think it's going to be interesting. So maybe, yeah.
I'd love to watch it. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that.
STP, you are really breaking up.
Sorry, breaking up? What do you mean?
He can't hear you.
Or is it me? Bishop, can you hear me?
I can hear
Can
both of you. I actually can hear both of you pretty fine. So it might be the input on yours, Seb. You might not be able to receive the hearing well. I don't know.
Looks like I'm the one breaking up
Seb,
because I cannot. Oh man,
Yeah.
let me reconnect.
Or else we
Oh,
can. You hear me?
I hear you now. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I hear you.
Or
Okay.
maybe we just put up an iPhone and then we record it. Maybe it will not look professional, but okay. At least we have everything documented. Maybe.
Yeah,
But
we can have a look. And by the way, it's good that you mentioned it. Anybody who's listening in, we are having indeed in the Netherlands a Kaspa meetup. So if you want to hear the latest gossips and developments, indeed also by KII or about CasMap or the Visual Eye, who also was present in Berlin with his art, then you are most welcome. Depending on the audience, it will be in Dutch or English, probably in English. I'm also still waiting on Chris. He was, let me see if he is coming or not. I will ask him later. But Chris from Blockchain Banter was also coming if he can make it at least. So the Netherlands will be the place to be coming Saturday. Check kasmap.org and go to the Netherlands. Click on the events list, and you will see with the upcoming events that this will be in Utrecht. It's very good connection if you are flying in or coming by train internationally from Europe. It's also very well connected. It's like 15 minutes out of the center, so it's from the central station. There's also a metro going there, so it's very well connected. And we will love to update everybody. And if you can join. And STP, I will look into together with Olaf to see if we can do some recording, but no promises.
no, okay. Thank you. That was my
Yes.
question. See you Saturday.
Yes, see you.
Awesome. What do you say, Juan?
I think that's a wrap.
All right, perfect. No, thanks for everyone for hopping on. Our first guest of the day was Matt J. Manning 333. Check him out. His mental sovereignty and openness is right in line with what we do at Live on the Kaspa Standard. It was such a pleasure having him on. Seb, STP, Elliot. I feel like we had one more speaker earlier too, or maybe we just been going this long. It feels like a lag, not a lag. I feel like we had a lot at us today, so I'm feeling the weight of the episode. Is that just
okay?
I don't know.
In what way? What do you mean?
Just a lot of energy, a lot of information from different places. You know, like I had mentioned earlier, with the first 2 hours with Matt, we were in one particular space. This last hour has been a lot of information in another direction. So I think that is for me, you know, which is a good thing. It makes this very, very re-listenable, rewatchable. You can watch the video replay over at youtube.com/@liveonthekaspastandard. You can also watch the video on X, which our profile for the show on X is right here in the spaces with us. Just click and follow there. Also known as @liveonthekaspastandard. Juan @glitch in 888. Myself, Bishop @TWTakesPodcast. This has been episode 14 of Live on the Kaspa Standard. Thank you guys so much for listening in, and we will see you guys next week.
Check out Blockchain Banter coming up at 4 o'clock with Lavendi and Chris. Appreciate all of you for coming on. See ya.